a giant bird displays its might, while the adventurers remain on the defensive. During the fierce battle, the leader calls out to Wally, the party's healer, and demands he heal him instead of a commoner. Wally immediately uses his healing magic, following the leader's command. Before long, the giant bird is finally defeated. The leader plants his foot on the bird, arrogantly commenting on what a nuisance the creature was. Suddenly, everyone notices Wally using his healing magic, even though the mission is over. The old man thanks Wally, but the young healer responds with humility. The old man bids him farewell, promising to never forget Wally's kindness. Meanwhile, one of Wally's teammates suddenly calls out to him, and then abruptly attacks him. The leader confronts Wally and criticizes him for his naive kindness, which could endanger the entire party. Wally apologizes, explaining that he can't stand to see anyone hurt. The leader's frustration grows until Melira, Wally's childhood friend, steps in. She tries to calm the situation, explaining that it's just Wally's nature to always help, and advises everyone to overlook his actions. The leader grinds his teeth, trying to control himself. He tells Wally he should thank Melira for backing him up. Meanwhile, another teammate tries to stop the leader before he says something he shouldn't. A confused expression spreads across Wally's face as he senses something is off. He asks his teammates, but the leader immediately tells him to shut up. The party fails to notice the old man hiding behind the ancient trees, smiling suspiciously. The old man declares that he has finally found what he was looking for while observing Wally. Shortly after, the leader kicks Wally out of the party. The young healer stands there, speechless. He asks why the leader suddenly changed his mind, but the leader refuses to listen. He declares that the party is aiming for S-rank glory. The leader arrogantly tells Wally that his soft-heartedness will only hinder their goal. Wally tries to defend his values, but he only frustrates everyone further. Another member announces that they can easily find a replacement for Wally. Wally tries to get Melira to defend him, but she just ignores him, leaving him in despair. The stars begin to appear as night falls. Wally walks away dejectedly, returning to his room with no idea what to do next. As he reaches his door, Wally suddenly stops, freezing when he sees the old man he treated earlier waiting inside his room. Wally asks what the old man is doing in his room, but the stranger replies calmly. The old man says he's come to repay Wally's kindness. However, the young healer politely refuses the old man's offer. The old man looks at him seriously and asks if he wouldn't like to possess a unique skill. Since very few people possess such rare abilities, Wally hesitates, thinking about how obtaining a unique skill would make him more valuable. The old man smiles and suddenly grabs Wally as if he's already received the answer to his question. Confused, Wally feels bewildered as the old man begins to chant an incantation. Wally suddenly panics, thinking about gaining a new skill, since, as a rule, a person can only possess one. Wally's healing skill is erased, while the old man reassures him that everything will be fine and that he has the potential to become much stronger than he can imagine. Surprise fills Wally's eyes as a notification appears, revealing he has just acquired the skill Helping Hand. A short while later, Wally is lying on his bed, still in shock. He feels like it was all just a dream, until he sees a document confirming the encounter. Wally remarks that his new skill has a strange name. He also realizes that he can acquire the skills he needs if he desires them strongly enough and pays with points. As he's walking outside, lost in thought about how to improve his basic skills, to give him an opportunity to act on his own, a woman suddenly dropped something, and Wally immediately noticed. Wally quickly retrieved the dropped item, and the woman thanked him. He was stunned to receive a notification that he'd been awarded 100 support points. The woman was puzzled by his reaction while Wally began to understand his new skill. He suddenly closed his eyes to concentrate, trying to use the points he had accumulated. A menu box appeared, prompting him to select how to use the points. Wally chose to upgrade his status. Looking at his status, he felt disappointed, but then he changed his perspective and became determined to earn even more points. Wally rushed forward with the goal of becoming a hero. Afterward, he sat down on a park bench, looking exhausted. He had spent several hours accumulating small good deeds and finally reached 1,000 support points. However, it still wasn't enough to upgrade his status. Wally couldn't help but feel a little disgusted with himself, as if he were just waiting for someone to get into trouble. He decided to look for quests that he could handle with his current skills. The adventurers in the guild hall were waiting for their turn to accept quests. Wally noticed the guild hall was more crowded than usual today, until a woman walked in, exuding a distinct tension. The attention of the adventurers in the guild was drawn to the girl with the captivating figure, and Wally couldn't help but glance at her, surprising himself. She had sturdy steel horns, sparkling golden eyes, and uniquely colored skin, leaving Wally completely stunned when he realized there was a monster girl in the same room as him. Suddenly, an adventurer cut in line and bumped into the monster girl. She protested, complaining that she was there first, but the adventurer retorted that humans get priority. The monster girl looked annoyed, but ultimately decided to let it go. Wally called out to the girl and offered her his spot in line. She was surprised and replied that she was perfectly fine, but Wally insisted, and in the end, the two of them swapped places. Wally's good deed earned him 30,000 support points, which came as a huge surprise. Suddenly, the monster girl approached him with a stern tone. The adventurers in the guild hall were all stunned, and then a sharp slap echoed throughout the hall. Wally was completely dumbfounded, as the monster girl warned him never to speak to her again. The onlookers saw her repay his kindness with a betrayal, reinforcing their belief that monsters were just a cruel species. Still reeling from the slap, Wally returned to his room and realized that the day had truly been a roller coaster. However, he remained optimistic as he looked at his status panel. Wally noticed that the recent power boost had actually made him significantly stronger, enough to defend himself in close combat. Suddenly, a loud noise put him on alert, and he decided to go check on the situation in the reception area. To his surprise, he found the monster girl in a heated argument with the innkeeper. She was pleading with the owner to let her stay, but he informed her that there were no rooms left. Wally witnessed the discrimination against the monster race and wanted to help. A notification appeared informing Wally that he had acquired the skill Master Negotiator, a skill that would allow him to gain the upper hand in any discussion. Deciding to act, Wally stepped in to intervene, surprising the monster girl, who was shocked to see him again. He asked if he could share his room with her, and the innkeeper confirmed that this was possible, as if he were being compelled. Wally paid the extra room fee on the monster girl's behalf, then invited her to follow him. The innkeeper calmed down but was still bewildered, looking concerned, but Wally replied that there wouldn't be any problems. The innkeeper reluctantly agreed to let Wally add someone to his room, even though all the rooms were full. Wally felt relieved that everything went smoothly. However, the monster girl confronted Wally, suspecting he was tricking her. Wally immediately denied it and explained that it was just his nature to always want to help people. He said she could use the room however she wanted because he was going out. The monster girl, annoyed, spoke up and stressed how she was always treated terribly just for being a monster in this country. Wally remained firm, insisting his intentions were good. Wally grabbed his bag and said goodbye to her, but she grabbed his hand, telling him to stay. She explained that she couldn't just send him away and insisted that he stay, which took Wally by surprise. As night fell, the monster girl wondered why he was sleeping on the floor. Her frustration grew as she tried to refuse his kindness and decided to stop using the bed. The girl's frustration was evident as she described Wally as soft-hearted but stubborn. Suddenly, an idea sparked in her mind. The monster girl challenged him to a match to settle things fairly. A game of chess. Wally warned her that he could be pretty tough when faced with a challenge. The monster girl, clearly irritated, told him to get on with it. While they were playing, she realized she hadn't properly introduced herself. She formally introduced herself as Darsha, an adventurer from a magical kingdom. Wally introduced himself as well, saying he was also an adventurer. She apologized for her actions at the guild, but Wally understood that she was deliberately playing the part of a villain. She explained that it was to avoid getting entangled in discrimination. Wally wondered why Darsha had decided to come to their country, despite the prejudice. She revealed that her goal was to seek knowledge, and that she wanted to foster mutual understanding and change the state of distrust between humans and monsters, speaking with firm conviction. She hoped to contribute to the country as an adventurer and become a bridge between the monster and human races. She revealed that receiving his help at the guild had actually made her very happy. Wally couldn't help but be moved by her words. Just then, Wally declared checkmate, much to Darsha's fury. He told her to calm down and she apologized, saying she could be a bit hot-headed sometimes. Darsha admitted that he was very strong and that she hadn't expected this result. Wally shared that his childhood best friend was a chess prodigy, which had helped him improve his own skills. Darsha felt she understood him better now and felt a little closer to him. She asked for another game, surprising Wally, who thought it was supposed to be a one-time match. Darsha's competitive side flared up as she explained that this time she wanted a proper rematch. Wally smiled, feeling the same way. They played again, but Wally won. Darsha's temper flared once more, but she was quick to apologize for it. Wally just looked at her and smiled. The next day, Darsha realized she owed Wally a favor. As it turned out, they both ended up taking on the same quest. Her competitive streak showed again as she drew a line in the sand, telling Wally that they weren't friends. Wally understood her reasoning. Darsha, ever fair, promised to repay him for letting her stay at his place. Wally smiled, liking the sound of that. She added that she was ready for another chess match, hoping to finally beat him. The two of them made their way through a dense forest toward the client's village. Suddenly, Wally asked if she practiced some form of martial arts, noticing she wasn't carrying a weapon. She was just about to answer Wally's question when a loud, panicked voice caught their attention. A sense of alarm washed over them, and Wally decided to check it out. Two civilians were begging for their lives, caught in a terrifying ambush by bandits. The callous bandits mocked the civilians' pleas, declaring they would take both of their lives. Just then, Wally intervened in the confrontation and loudly told them to stop. The bandits were surprised by his appearance. Wally warned them to release the civilians in danger as he tightened his grip on his sword. Without a moment's hesitation, the bandits charged forward. A fierce battle erupted between Wally and the bandits. In the middle of the fight, Wally suddenly realized the power of his savior skill was activating. He declared that he was ready to fight, showing his fierce determination. The bandit was suddenly left speechless as his axe slipped from his hands, and the others began to grow anxious about Wally's overwhelming power. As they tried to escape, Darsha appeared and blocked their way. Wally was relieved to see his comrade arrive as backup. She sighed and reminded him not to rush in alone. The bandit lunged at her, tauntingly asking what she thought she could do without getting hurt. Wally rushed to protect her, but Darsha simply gave him a cold glance. She casually flicked her wrist and black flames engulfed the bandit. The enemy choked on his own blood, leaving his comrades frozen in stunned silence. Wally couldn't believe his eyes. He was witnessing a skill that only someone from the monster races could use. Darsha looked confidently at the wounded bandit, the full extent of her dark magic on display. The remaining bandits found themselves surrounded and vastly outnumbered. They beat a hasty retreat, vowing revenge. Darsha made a move to pursue them, but Wally stopped her, insisting that they needed to help the injured civilians first. She gave him a soft look and agreed to his plan. After using 2 potions, Wally realized the severity of the wounds and worried that the potions weren't enough to save the civilians' lives. Wally silently lamented the loss of his healing magic, blaming himself for being unable to save the wounded. His desperation finally paid off when a notification appeared, informing him that his healing skill was ready. Without a second thought, Wally confirmed the skill. He wasted no time, immediately casting his healing magic on the civilians. A powerful light enveloped the area, leaving Darsha amazed as she watched the wounds heal right before her eyes. Wally was relieved to have saved the injured, and he joyfully reunited with his father. Darsha watched Wally with admiration after his miraculous display of magic. She complimented the power of his healing magic, but Wally tried to be humble about it. He silently noted that the recovery speed of his skill was unbelievable, and realized he was now stronger than he had ever been as a healer. Wally couldn't contain his excitement over his extraordinary new skill. His joy grew as he told Darsha to look ahead. The two of them had finally arrived at the village, ready to start their first quest together. They asked a villager for directions to the client's house and were pointed toward the home of the village chief. However, the village chief greeted them with hostility, demanding that they go home. Wally, confused, asked for an explanation. The village chief explained that he didn't like working with members of the monster races, and that he could manage just fine with the human mercenaries he already had. His contempt was a clear example of the poor treatment monster races received from humans. Wally realized that there was a deep-seated prejudice against the monster races, and that befriending them could lead to mistreatment. This explained the huge number of points he'd received for saving Darsha. It was a reward commensurate with the danger he had faced. Darsha seemed ready to accept their situation, but Wally stood firm and used his negotiation skill. He challenged the village chief, asking if he was really prepared to break their contract just because of her race. The village chief grew flustered while Wally continued to press him for an answer. Realizing the chief's error in judgment, Wally firmly stated that canceling a contract based on race was a violation of guild regulations. He then used the other mercenaries as witnesses, insisting they only wanted to take on quests like anyone else. This put the village chief in an awkward spot. Another mercenary tried to defuse the tension, persuading the chief that more manpower would be better for dealing with the bandits. The village chief looked at them with a stern gaze. He finally relented but warned that failure was not an option. Wally felt relieved, while the mission leader explained the job. Meanwhile, Darsha couldn't help but feel a sense of admiration for Wally. She looked at him with respect and described Wally as a brave man. The village chief provided a map and pointed out the bandits' hideout. A mercenary remarked that they should go through the forest to approach from an unexpected angle. Though he seemed skeptical about the map, the village chief reassured him. He was very familiar with the terrain inside and out. Another adventurer voiced his readiness, while Wally urged them to hurry, as he had already run into a few bandits on his way to the village. The group decided to hold a strategy meeting before setting out. The village chief watched them from a corner, his menacing gaze fixed on Darsha, signaling impending danger. The group finally entered the forest, but something suddenly made them stop in their tracks. Upon seeing a large clearing in the dense forest, the group's leader ordered everyone to rest there. Suddenly, a light erupted from the ground as they stepped onto a magic circle. The group had fallen into a trap and were zapped with electricity inside the circle. Wally recognized the type of magic that was used as he grimaced in pain inside the dungeon. The bandit leader sat comfortably, noting how easy it had been to capture the adventurers. He admitted to an accomplice that he had kept his promise not to bother the villagers. It turned out the one who helped him capture the adventurers was none other than the village chief. The bandit leader was amused by the village chief, noting that things would get ugly if the guild found out. The village chief was firm in his decision, his hatred for monsters having led him to betray the group. He would rather deal with bandits than let a monster come into his village. The bandit leader replied that it didn't matter to him either way. The village chief headed back to the village, reminding the bandit leader of his promise. The leader felt relieved once the chief had finally gone. Afterward, he let out a sinister smile. He couldn't believe he had fooled everyone, including the village chief. Meanwhile, Wally woke up in a cell, dazed to find himself in a completely unfamiliar place. His group members noticed he was awake and told him they were far from safe, adding that the bandits had taken all their weapons. Wally was confused, unable to understand what had happened. The bandit leader looked at them as if they were sacrificial offerings. Darsha asked if he was the one in charge and what he meant by sacrificial offerings. The bandit leader replied cryptically, saying it was exactly what it sounded like. Wally was horrified to hear the leader's explanation. The village chief had sold them out in exchange for the village's safety. Darsha realized it was the bandit leader who had pressured the village chief into betraying them. She added that the quest wouldn't be considered a failure unless the client failed to report it to the guild. The bandit leader confirmed her words, emphasizing that they were free to act as they pleased as long as the guild remained unaware of the situation. Wally was still in shock, while Darsha remarked that the village chief was a fool. The bandit leader agreed, revealing they had no intention of keeping their promise. Wally's eyes widened in disbelief upon hearing the leader's words. He announced that the bandits would be making one final haul and that all preparations were complete. Wally desperately tried to stop them from his cell. The bandit leader said they would deal with the adventurers later, after they were done with the village. As Wally reached out a hand feeling hopeless in the dungeon, Wally tried to use his strength to break the cell bars. Darsha remarked that even her dark flames were useless in this situation. Wally's desperation was evident as he continued trying to force the cell door open. The other adventurers suggested they wait for an opportunity and save their strength. But Wally refused to waste any more time, because he was worried about the villagers who would have to face the impending disaster caused by the bandits. His desperate cries for help echoed through the dungeon until he activated his rescue skill. Thief Man! Stolen items from the village were piled on the floor, while the villagers lay collapsed on the ground. The bandit leader remarked that this was their easiest job ever. The village chief stepped forward, realizing that the well had been poisoned. The bandit leader looked at him with a menacing smile. The chief struggled, gasping for air, feeling betrayed as the bandits looked down on him, reminding him of the promise they had made. He sneered, reminding the chief that they were thieves and would never keep such a promise. The chief's convulsions intensified as the poison took effect, and he screamed, calling the leader a despicable bastard. The bandit leader replied that the title suited the chief better, since he was the one who sold out the adventurers. One of the leader's underlings rushed over to report something urgent. He asked about the status of the guards, but his subordinate was panicking and couldn't answer clearly. Other bandits were being taken down, as Wally and Darsha rushed to the scene, determined to save the rest of the villagers. Both were filled with determination, ready to eliminate these dangerous bandits. With his skills, the noise of the chaos to the north was loud enough to be heard on the other side of the village. The other adventurers wished they could be with Wally, feeling this situation was much more exciting than standing guard. The remaining bandits were defeated. They thanked Wally for clearing out the enemies for them, praising his strength. On the other side, Wally and Darsha charged in to confront the enemy, filled with determination. A fierce confrontation began between the adventurers and the bandits. The bandit leader couldn't believe it. The fact that the adventurers were attacking and had escaped the dungeon, the bandit leader's subordinate reported that they had decided to group up since they couldn't escape anyway. The bandit leader noted that the dungeon wasn't easy to break out of, and figured one of them must have a lock-picking skill. He ordered the other bandits to gather in the village center and not to engage in single combat. The bandit leader looked down and brutally kicked the village chief. He grabbed the chief by the hair and said that the very adventurers he sold out were planning to save the village. He remarked that the adventurers were soft, since they could have just left the village. The bandit leader acknowledged that those adventurers had their own way of fighting. Meanwhile, Darsha prepared her dark flame to annihilate the enemy. For a moment, Wally was amazed by her, while he was engaged in a sword fight with an opponent. He tightened his grip on his sword's hilt, telling himself he could do this. The enemy's weapon slipped from his grasp as he continued to slash fiercely. The remaining bandits saw that the two adventurers were difficult opponents, and decided to attack Darsha first. The bandits charged at her all at once. She remained unfazed by the impending attack. Darsha focused her energy and then leaped into the air, leaving the bandits speechless. They called her a filthy cheat for flying up to avoid their attack. Darsha looked down at them from the air, clearly offended by their words. She glanced at the miserable villagers. Her anger surged, thinking that the same insult was far more fitting for the bandits. Darsha took a deep breath, then exhaled a stream of dark breath and fire towards the enemy. The village was immediately engulfed in a sea of flames, while the bandits fled in panic. Wally was astonished as he witnessed Darsha's power. Archers with long-range weapons took aim at her, but she simply blocked the attacks with her bare hands. The bandits froze in fear, looking at Darsha, whom they described as a monster. Wally felt grateful to Darsha for terrifying the enemy, which made a coordinated attack possible. Suddenly, Wally's eyes widened as he heard a familiar voice. The bandit leader appeared on the scene, confidently calling for Darsha's attention, while his henchmen held a little girl hostage. Darsha and Wally were in agony as the tension mounted. The bandit ordered her to come down or she would see the child's blood spilled. The child cried in fear while being used as a human shield. Darsha descended, threatening the bandits that they would pay for their cruelty. The boss immediately signaled his subordinate to fire an arrow. Unable to anticipate the attack, Darsha was shot in the hip. His eyes widened in shock upon seeing her critical condition. Darsha collapsed to the ground, struggling against the pain. As he tried to regain his composure so he could immediately help Darsha, he thought of how to heal her, trying to remain calm. He considered his next move to keep the child from being harmed. A sudden idea flashed through his mind. He remembered the new skill he had recently awakened. At the hideout, he covered his head with his hood and used his thief skills. The bandit leader asked his henchman if the monster girl was alone, but the henchman confirmed that there was someone else with her. The leader carefully scanned their surroundings, avoiding any rash moves. Suddenly, he felt something unsettling, which made his henchman wary of what was behind him. Wally successfully snatched the child from the enemy's grasp. Wally launched a swift attack, then slid to the ground with the child in his arms. Meanwhile, the bandit grimaced in pain. After being hit, the leader was confused, having not seen Wally sneak up on them. His skill not only allowed him to easily pick locks and disarm traps, but also to move stealthily, erasing all traces of his presence. Suddenly, someone called out Wally's name in a worried voice. The other adventurers had arrived on the scene and informed him that they had cleared their area. Wally saw their timing was perfect and handed the child over to his teammates. He immediately dashed forward, leaving the other adventurers confused. The bandits tried to block Wally's path. As he tried to save Darsha, a confident bandit stepped forward to face Wally alone. But Wally just stepped on his face. Wally leapt into the air as he passed by. Past the bandits, he powerfully drove his sword into the ground and immediately checked on Darsha. She groaned in pain, which made Wally feel relieved that she was still alive. He immediately prepared to heal her. Wally placed his hand on her wound and used his healing magic. A light emanated from his hand, slowly closing her wound. Wally's eyes widened as the magic took effect, and he immediately checked Darsha's condition again. She suddenly let out a painful cough, which sent Wally into a panic, since he had already closed her wound. Darsha informed him that the arrow was poisoned. As she struggled, his anxiety mounted, knowing his healing magic couldn't cure poison. A flying axe was about to strike his back, but he managed to block it with his bare hand, all while still holding his sword, trying to protect Darsha as the bandits surrounded them. He panicked, not knowing what to do, but Darsha told him not to worry about her. He refused to listen to her and held his ground. She desperately begged him to reconsider, asking him to save the village instead of her. While he struggled to think clearly, Darsha began to lose consciousness. He let out a desperate, massive roar for help, which activated another of his skills. Wally acquired a skill called Detox Man, which allowed him to detoxify anything. A bandit charged at him, seizing the opportunity to finish him off. Wally blocked the bandit, determined to learn the skill even if it meant using up all his points. Wally delivered a powerful slash, forcing the bandit to flee. He reached his hand toward Darsha and detoxified her, a light emitting from her body as the poison was purged. Wally was determined to keep her alive. One of Wally's teammates warned him to be careful, sensing an approaching danger from within the forest. Another bandit fired an arrow at Wally while he was still healing Darsha. He thought he wouldn't make it in time, his eyes widening in horror as the arrow struck Darsha. Darsha got up and saved Wally just in time. Wally's eyes lit up seeing her alive and well. She even joked about his stubbornness to lighten the mood. Darsha turned serious as she faced the bandits who were using dirty tricks. Her anger showed as she promised to make them pay. The bandits screamed in fear as they tried to dodge her barrage of fireworks. The bandit leader was bewildered by the scene. His underling asked what they should do, but the leader told him to calm down. The leader ordered his men to fight dirty and take another hostage. Darsha's anger intensified as she prepared to stop them. The bandit looked around and smirked as he glanced at the villagers. He could take them hostage. Suddenly, his body was slammed hard, shocking both Darsha and the bandit leader. A shovel was raised in the air. As the villagers prepared to fight back, the bandits were shocked, as they were supposed to be paralyzed by poison. Darsha looked around, surprised to see Wally healing the villagers with his magic. The villagers thanked Wally for healing them, while Wally urged them to find safety. However, the villagers refused Wally's advice and decided to join the others to protect their village. The villagers stood firm with courage, ready to fight against the bandits. The bandit leader decided to retreat since they were outnumbered. Suddenly, the leader ordered his men to retreat quickly before they were surrounded. However, a wall of fire erupted around them. Darsha blocked their escape route. Her face was menacing as she threatened the bandits. The leader's anxiety grew as his group was trapped, while an attack was imminent. Before he could realize what was happening, Wally swiftly slashed the bandit leader. The enemy's eyes widened in shock. After the surprise attack, he bravely demanded the bandit leader's surrender, but the bandit leader's fury only grew as he decided to attack again with his remaining strength. He lunged at Wally, his wounded pride unable to accept defeat. Suddenly, Darsha snuck up on the bandit and kicked him in the ankle. He was severely injured, causing him to lose consciousness. Instantly, the remaining bandits panicked after seeing their leader fall. Darsha called out to the others, asking if they still wanted to fight. With an ominous look on her face, the bandits immediately dropped their weapons, surrendered, and begged for their lives. Not long after, the villagers celebrated their victory over the bandits. Darsha and Wally were relieved that everything was finally over. Wally was suddenly on the verge of collapsing from overexerting himself to save the villagers. Darsha worriedly caught him, but Wally reassured her that he was fine, explaining it was just exhaustion from using too much healing magic. Darsha understood and sympathized with him. She carried Wally to find a place for him to rest. Suddenly, a villager stopped them and asked if Darsha was from the monster tribe. She immediately confirmed it. The villagers approached, making Wally secretly worry, as he thought they would discriminate against Darsha like other humans had. However, to his surprise, the villagers showed admiration for Darsha and her strength. Wally and Darsha were both shocked by this unexpected reaction. The villagers invited them to rest at their homes, and everyone in the village expressed their respect for their saviors, even offering them delicious food. Darsha was deeply moved by the villagers' appreciation. She felt praised and honored. At the same time, Wally couldn't contain his emotions as he looked at her. However, the village chief angrily stopped the celebration, calling the adventurers thugs. He tried to convince the villagers not to praise someone from the monster tribe. Everyone was surprised when he said there was no need to be grateful to Darsha. The chief was stunned when the villagers stood up against him to defend Darsha, who had saved all their lives. The chief's anger grew as someone else caught his attention. The other adventurers smiled strangely as they confronted the chief, accusing him of selling them out to the bandits. The chief broke out in a sweat as the villagers discovered the truth. He tried to justify his wrongdoing, blaming Darsha and calling her a disgrace. Wally remained silent, observing the desperate village chief. He asked the chief why he hated the monster tribe so much, and his anger swelled. As Wally tried to understand the village chief, the two adventurers were shocked when the chief revealed that his father had been captured by the monster kingdom during the war. He shared that his father carried that grudge until the end of his life, and had told him bitter stories as a child. The village chief felt ashamed for being saved by a monster after inheriting the village from his father. Despite his attempt to reason with her, Darsha told him to step back. Darsha stepped forward, deciding to handle the situation herself. The chief panicked, thinking she was going to silence him with her special powers. Darsha walked silently, which only increased the chief's anxiety. She bowed her head without hesitation and apologized. The chief was speechless while Darsha said she was sorry for what had happened. Darsha apologized on behalf of the monster race for what they had done to the chief's father. Unsatisfied, the chief demanded that she get on her knees. The villagers and Wally were all surprised by his demand. Darsha whispered her reply, surprising the chief. Suddenly, Darsha punched the chief, sending him flying into the air. Wally and the villagers couldn't help but be shocked by Darsha's reaction. She explained that his father's situation was completely different from the current one. Putting innocent people in danger because of a personal grudge is unacceptable. Darsha said she could never forgive him for what he had done. The villagers applauded her while Wally felt proud of Darsha. The next day, the bandits were finally captured by the authorities. Wally and his group were relieved that the mission was complete. The adventurers thanked and praised Wally, but he remained humble. The other adventurers said goodbye to Wally and Darsha, expressing how glad they were to have worked with a team like theirs. The two were stunned by the adventurers' words. Darsha tried to explain that she and Wally weren't a team. Wally looked at her in confusion until he asked if she was getting ready to leave. Suddenly, Darsha realized she hadn't properly thanked Wally, so she did, but Wally told her it wasn't necessary. Darsha insisted, especially since he had saved her life. Wally replied that he just did what he wanted to do, which started to annoy Darsha. Darsha firmly grabbed Wally's hand and insisted that he let her repay him, promising to do anything within her power. Wally thought deeply, trying to consider her offer. Darsha waited patiently. He asked her again if she was really serious, and she confirmed, stressing that a monster never goes back on their word. Darsha stared at him while Wally thought carefully about his request. Finally, he made up his mind, asking her to join his party. Darsha was stunned, speechless at his answer. She nervously rejected Wally's request out of the blue, saying she wouldn't accept it. Darsha explained that it wasn't that she hated working with him, but she just didn't want to be a burden to him. Darsha wondered why he would choose her, and Wally simply replied that it was because she's cool. Darsha paused for a moment after his unexpected answer. Wally shared that he really admired her genuine nature, especially after she took down the village chief. She felt a little embarrassed recalling that confrontation. Wally explained that even though she had to endure discrimination, she still fought for the safety of innocent people. Wally repeated that her actions made him admire her even more. He held out his hand and said that he really wanted to team up with her, and no one else. Darsha blushed, feeling happy at his praise. She responded by making it clear that he was the one pushing for this, and that she didn't want to be blamed if anything went wrong. She felt shy but finally agreed to Wally's offer. Wally smiled broadly as the two shook hands, officially forming their party. Meanwhile, an innocent person was running for her life. Lily, a lone female explorer, trembled in fear as she looked around. Desperation filled her cries for help as the monstrous creature drew near. Lily suddenly tripped and fell to the ground, the approaching monster causing her to freeze in fear. Just then, Wally heroically intervened, swinging his sword at the monster. He immediately called for Darsha's assistance, and she rushed forward, delivering a powerful blow to the monster. Lily, still on the ground, watched their teamwork in amazement. She turned to look at Wally and was shocked to realize the woman fighting alongside him was a demon-like monster. Wally and Darsha spoke casually while Lily remained confused at the sight of a demon-like monster teaming up with a human. A little while earlier, Wally and Darsha were undertaking a B-rank quest in a dungeon. Something suddenly caught Wally's attention, and he was startled when an adventurer hastily ran past. Two female adventurers were arguing as they moved through the dungeon. Wally was confused by their panic while Darsha told them to wait. Afterward, she became curious about what they were chasing. Darsha thought something important was happening and wondered about a man holding something. She asked Wally to check, but he felt nervous and didn't dare to. She told him it was important while Wally was sweating profusely. The adventurer they had just seen looked distressed and was trying to get their attention. Suddenly, another monstrous creature appeared before them. The adventurer was stunned as she watched Darsha and Wally deal with the monster. The two of them displayed their strength as they fought the monster together. The adventurer stood watching, speechless. Out of sight, Wally and Darsha checked if the adventurer was hurt and praised her resilience for fighting alone. Wally checked if she was injured while Darsha reminded him to stay alert. The monster rose from the ground again, surprising Wally while Lily stretched her hand forward. A powerful shield enveloped them, blocking the monster's attack. Wally was surprised to see the shield, while Darsha immediately came to their aid. She checked on them while Wally reported that they were okay. Wally turned back to look at Lily, but she suddenly fainted. Both of them immediately panicked, while Wally quickly checked her and sighed in relief upon discovering she had only passed out. He realized that Lily had used up all her energy creating the shield to protect them. Wally used a recovery spell to heal her, causing Lily to wake up instantly. He breathed a sigh of relief when he saw her regain consciousness, and she quickly apologized for bothering them. Wally helped her up while Lily thanked them for their help. Wally and Darsha stood silently, staring at her intently. Lily felt shy under their gaze, then introduced herself. Wally suddenly felt nervous, realizing how they were staring, and tried to look serious. Wally and Darsha introduced themselves and informed Lily that they were a two-person party. He told Lily that they were still looking for more adventurers to join their party, which caused Darsha to react strongly. For some reason, Lily found their conversation amusing, which made Darsha look at her with curiosity. Lily felt a pang of jealousy seeing how close they were. She couldn't hold back her emotions as tears streamed down her face. She apologized for her reaction while Wally looked at her with concern. He asked what she was doing alone and mentioned the two adventurers they had met earlier. Lily drifted into a memory, recounting when her teammates discovered ore in the dungeon and thought they had hit the jackpot. Lily had informed one of her teammates, Sarah, that their packs were getting heavy. Sarah scolded her and told her to stop whining, then allowed her to join the group. Suddenly, a loud roar echoed throughout the dungeon. The adventurers panicked at the sight of the monster, unable to comprehend its appearance in the area. The monster revealed its terrifying form and attacked the adventurers. Lily used her shield to protect her teammates from the monster. Her teammates trembled in fear, admitting that they couldn't handle the monster on their own. They asked Lily to buy them time with her shield. Sarah told her she would handle it with her ultimate magic. Sarah pointed in the opposite direction while they tried to flee. While Lily didn't realize it, the monster kept breaking through her shield, forcing Lily to struggle to hold her ground. Lily turned back and asked Sarah if her magic was ready. However, her teammates were already gone, leaving Lily in utter shock. After hearing her traumatic story, Darsha couldn't contain her anger towards Lily's teammates, while Wally agreed, condemning them for using Lily as bait. Lily explained that her party was named Angelos, with Sarah as the leader, who came from the same school as her, and would make their lives miserable if they fought back. Wally suggested that Lily report the incident. Lily looked back at her teammates and decided she would report them to the Adventurers Guild, so they would face expulsion. Wally said that intentionally putting a teammate in a life-threatening situation was a serious crime, which Darsha agreed with. She added that Lily would finally be free once that happened. Lily paused for a moment as she thought about achieving her freedom, then thought carefully as she looked at Wally and Darsha. She made up her mind and told them she would try, which made them happy and filled them with determination. Lily vowed to return to the Adventurers Guild and report the wrongful actions of her teammates. Wally immediately prepared to lead Lily out of there to the exit. Lily refused, not wanting to trouble them any further. Wally told her not to worry and insisted on his offer. He smiled and told Lily that he also wanted to thank her for helping him earlier. Lily was surprised by Wally's kindness. Darsha looked at Wally and acknowledged his kindness. Wally thanked Darsha for putting up with him so far, which annoyed Darsha. The two began to bicker lightly, which Lily found amusing to watch. Their group finally reached the dungeon exit before sunset. Wally and Darsha paused for a moment, while Lily was thinking of a way to thank them. However, Wally told Lily not to worry about it and suggested they hurry to the guild to make the report. Lily hesitated, causing them to ask her what was wrong. Lily thought about the possibility of her party being disbanded, then asked Wally and Darsha if she could join their party. They were both surprised when Lily said she wanted to help them. She stood her ground, waiting for their answer. Darsha appreciated her enthusiasm and strength, but she pointed out that Lily might face discrimination from others. Since she was part of the demon tribe, Darsha was worried that Lily might be treated unfairly. However, Lily replied that she understood, as she herself had been bullied when she was a child. She shared her willingness to be with Darsha and Wally to become a part of their group. Darsha looked at Wally and they both came to a mutual decision. Lily was moved as the two warmly welcomed her. She promised to join their party as soon as she finished reporting her treacherous companions. Wally and Darsha bid her farewell and awaited her return. Meanwhile, Lily rushed out into the street, eagerly anticipating her freedom. Lily couldn't wait to report her companions. When she arrived at the guild, the receptionist called out the next person on the list. Lily immediately announced that she was there to report her party. However, she suddenly froze when she heard someone call her name. Sarah appeared and pretended to be overjoyed that Lily was safe. Lily's dream of freedom seemed to be short-lived. Sarah stood behind her with a dark aura, feigning concern. Meanwhile, at the tavern, Darsha slammed the table, feeling that something was strange. Both Darsha and Wally were worried about Lily after not hearing from her for 2 weeks. Wally thought carefully, while Darsha regretted not going with Lily to the guild. Wally stood up and asked Darsha to go find her. He felt optimistic that if they came forward to testify, it might change the situation. Darsha agreed, and the two immediately went to the guild, where a receptionist greeted them. Wally and Darsha sat on a bench while waiting for the inspectors who would hear their report. Wally felt suspicious about the situation. Suddenly, a person entered the room and greeted Darsha. Tina remarked that it had been a long time since they had seen each other, surprising Darsha. Tina, who was now the inspector on the case, greeted Darsha enthusiastically. Wally asked if she was Darsha's friend, but Tina denied it, revealing that they had met once in a match to earn some quick cash. Wally and Darsha chatted lightly while Tina announced that she had won that match. Darsha admitted that she didn't expect Tina to be the inspector on this case. Tina smiled and explained that she had changed professions. Tina then asked Wally and Darsha to tell their story to begin the investigation. She carefully reviewed the report and announced that their testimony was essentially just baseless accusations. Darsha insisted that they saw the members abandon Tina in the dungeon, which was a serious crime. Tina continued to question Darsha, reducing her to silence. However, Wally intervened. Concerned that Tina might have been threatened, Tina pointed out the certainty in his tone and warned that he could be punished for making baseless accusations against other teams. Wally felt discouraged, while Tina looked at them with a threatening gaze. She slammed her fist on the table, challenging Darsha to find the culprit to prove their accusations. Darsha reacted and warned Tina not to mess with her. However, the inspector said that it was procedure, and there was nothing she could do. Tina left and concluded the investigation, leaving Wally and Darsha speechless. The two walked in silence down the street. Darsha broke the silence and apologized to Wally, but he said it wasn't her fault. She felt guilty that Tina held a grudge against her. However, Wally seemed to agree with Tina and emphasized the importance of Tina's testimony. Darsha clenched her fists while Wally realized that Tina hadn't reported the incident and they should stay out of it. However, Wally couldn't stand the thought of Tina crying in the dungeon and insisted they shouldn't give up. Darsha's face lit up, feeling excited by Wally's support. He suggested they should talk to her again. Darsha said they should split up and start the search tomorrow. Meanwhile, Lily was on a mission and was clearly struggling. Her weakened state was evident as she handed the materials to Sarah. Sarah looked at the item and remarked that it would fetch a good reward. She decided they would return to the guild and have the item appraised. Sarah acknowledged Lily's usefulness, but then slapped her with a bag of money and said she was glad Lily was still alive. Lily bowed her head, trembling in fear. Sarah then asked if Lily had revealed any secrets to the Malira Guild, and Lily confirmed she hadn't. Sarah questioned Lily about overhearing any reports, but Lily explained it was only about her return. She was startled when Sarah spoke to her, threatening to do something if she didn't obey. Sarah slammed her weapon on the ground, saying she wouldn't let this go easily. Lily trembled even more while Sarah wondered if her threat was enough to keep her silent. Lily became curious as to why she hadn't reported Sarah to the Malira Guild yet. She started to feel anxious and expressed her dislike for overthinking things. Meanwhile, Lily's footsteps were heavy with sorrow as she returned home, her clothes covered in mud, making her feel the need to wash up. Suddenly, a familiar voice called out in front of her, saying they had been looking for her for a long time. Lily looked up with a glimmer of hope on her face, only to see Darsha standing before her. She quickly turned away in shame, and Lily tried to run from Darsha, but Darsha tried to stop her. Lily stopped dead in her tracks when Darsha pointed out that she was still in her party. Lily apologized, saying that she just couldn't fit in with Darsha's party. Darsha gently called Lily's name, telling her that she didn't have to join their party, but staying with her current one wasn't the answer either. Darsha warned her that in the end, she would just be used and then lose her life. Lily paused in shock while Darsha asked her if she was really okay with that. Sadness filled Darsha's face as she looked intently at Lily. Lily started to cry, saying she was in so much pain, confessing she was too terrified to do anything whenever she saw Sarah's face. Lily begged Darsha to stop as she tried to resign herself to her fate. Lily walked away and told Darsha to leave her alone. Darsha gritted her teeth, frustrated as she recalled the time she invited Lily to join her and Wally's party. She remembered Lily's smile when she first heard the invitation. Darsha admitted that she had been genuinely happy, believing they could become friends. Lily tried to ignore her, but Darsha persisted, saying her feelings hadn't changed at all. Tears streamed down Darsha's face as she pleaded with Lily to remember. Meanwhile, Darsha was unaware that a few people were eavesdropping on their conversation. Around a hidden corner, Sarah and another of her teammates were listening and carefully observing the situation. Sarah's companions suddenly recalled Wally, whom they had met in the dungeon. Sarah realized they were probably the ones who had saved Lily from danger and stirred up these strange feelings in her. The other adventurer thought that Wally was too strong and that defeating him would be a huge challenge. And they realized Darsha was a demon, which intrigued Sarah. She told her companion not to overdo it, as she had a plan to ruin them and drive them out of Malira. The dangerous adventurers prepared to execute their plan, plotting to turn the tables on Darsha. The next day, Wally and Darsha met at the guild to discuss how scared Lily was of Sarah. Meanwhile, everyone was giving them strange looks. Wally noticed their stares, while Darsha told him not to worry about it. But just then, he suddenly remembered something. Wally told Darsha he needed to buy some supplies and suggested they meet at the inn instead of going together. After finishing his purchase, the shopkeeper asked Wally if he was all right, which took him by surprise. The shopkeeper explained that he was the one who had just formed a party with a demon, which Wally confirmed. The shopkeeper informed him that a rumor was going around. Wally was stunned when the man said the rumor was about him being mistreated by the demon. Wally returned to the inn and Darsha immediately found out about the rumor. She instantly demanded to know who had spread it. Wally did some digging on his own and discovered that Lily's teammates were the ones spreading the rumor. Darsha realized they were trying to get revenge for her attempting to lure Lily away from them. Darsha was furious at the despicable fake adventurers for their rotten attitude. However, Darsha decided not to react to the rumors, since they were completely baseless. She was confident that the people of Malira wouldn't pay attention to such nonsense, just as Tina herself had said. Wally suddenly recalled what the shopkeeper had said. He remembered it would be better to bring Darsha into this, which surprised her when they were summoned to the guild. Tina greeted them warmly and apologized for summoning Wally. He immediately asked why she had only called for him to meet in private. Tina replied that she wanted to discuss a different matter from their last meeting. Tina revealed that she had received an anonymous letter, which made Wally curious. Tina said that she'd heard he was being bullied quite badly. Wally insisted it was just a baseless rumor, but Tina couldn't just ignore it as the rumor was spreading like wildfire. Wally asked about her earlier comment about how he shouldn't be bothered by rumors. Meanwhile, Tina started to get a little personal with him. She dismissed the letter's authenticity while also pointing out the absurdities he'd have to face by partnering with someone from a monster race. Tina offered to help him with this, trying to manipulate him into asking her to save him from the monster folk. Suddenly, Wally voiced his discomfort. Wally grew angry and refused to be manipulated by Tina. Tina was surprised by his reaction, and the malicious letter fell to the floor. Wally asked to leave, while Tina, impressed by his reaction, made him pause for a moment. He faced Tina bravely, silencing her. Tina was shocked by his response, describing him as a tough one, and found him all the more interesting and challenging. Outside Malira, Wally couldn't stop thinking deeply about the situation. Meanwhile, the Angelus group showed their excitement about making money from the new mission, but Lily seemed tense. Sarah demanded that Lily protect them. While unbeknownst to them, Darsha was secretly following the group to keep an eye on Lily. At the same time, Wally arrived on the scene, and Darsha asked him about his meeting with Tina. Wally said they were safe for now. Darsha reported that Lily and her group had just entered the dungeon, and that she was about to follow them immediately. Worried they might be walking into a dangerous situation. Inside the dungeon, Sarah was fighting fiercely against the monsters, causing huge explosions, and feeling proud for successfully defeating the monsters with her magic. Suddenly, Lily noticed something in the distance and immediately created a shield to block the incoming attacks. She watched with a worried expression as giant needles, launched from a huge spider, prepared to strike. Lily told everyone to get back, warning them that she could only hold the shield for a short time. Sarah panicked as a needle pierced through the shield, nearly hitting her. Lily immediately apologized to Sarah and checked if she was okay. Sarah, annoyed, demanded that Lily protect her better. As Sarah's clothes were torn, Lily reminded her to worry about more serious things. However, Lily suddenly discovered a needle had pierced her own leg. She couldn't react right away and let out a scream of agony from the intense pain. Lily pulled out the needle and tried to stand up, but her body wouldn't move, indicating she was paralyzed by the spider's venom. She desperately begged her companions for help, but they tried to run away. As the spider was busy devouring Lily, she couldn't believe her eyes, seeing that what Darsha had said about her companions was true. Lily tried to accept the fact that she was going to die alone in the dungeon. Suddenly, someone came to her rescue. Calling her name as a huge explosion erupted, hitting the spider. Lily's companions were surprised by the sudden attack. A strong gust of wind blew past them, and a figure flashed by at incredible speed. Wally and Darsha combined their powers to save Lily from the giant spider. Sarah was shocked to see them standing there while the monster was burned to a crisp. Darsha immediately ran to Lily and asked if she was okay. Wally tried to heal her right away while Lily was still suffering from the venom. Wally used his healing magic to create an antidote for Lily, and she smiled as she felt the relief. They were both relieved to see she was out of danger. Darsha turned her attention to Lily's teammates who were standing nervously behind them. She stood up firmly and called them out for abandoning Lily a second time. Sarah retorted, telling Darsha not to meddle in their affairs. Darsha replied that they were the ones who saved Lily twice, so it was very much their business. Sarah smirked and said she wished Lily was dead. That way she wouldn't have to shut anyone up. Sarah's heartless response made Darsha's fury erupt. Wally quickly restrained her and warned Sarah that they would report the incident to the guild, and that she and her teammates would face the consequences for their actions. Sarah laughed sinisterly and then eerily summoned Lily. Lily's eyes were filled with fear as she immediately got up and ran to Sarah's side. Sarah confidently declared that the words of outsiders like them would mean nothing to the guild. Lily looked at Sarah with a haunted expression while Darsha realized this was a hopeless situation. She stepped forward, trying to convince Lily to cut her ties with Sarah. Lily looked at Darsha with terrified eyes, but Sarah shot her a threatening glare, warning Lily not to listen to a word Darsha said. Darsha shouted and urged Lily not to hesitate, putting Lily in a difficult position. Darsha encouraged Lily to be true to herself, promising to protect her from any harm. Sarah tried to thwart Darsha's efforts with lies. Darsha calmly advised Lily to trust her. Lily felt overwhelmed, her emotions flooding in. As she was torn between Sarah, the one who had abused her, and Wally and Darsha, the ones who truly cared about her. Lily let out a pained scream, reaching her hand out toward Sarah. Lily paused for a moment, causing Sarah to fall to the ground in shock. Sarah asked what Lily wanted, and Lily screamed that she was nothing to Sarah anymore. Lily said that she wasn't her lackey or her friend, that she had finally had enough, and she called out Sarah's abusive behavior. Lily expressed her desire to be free from their party. Silence fell over the dungeon while Darsha felt proud of Lily. Sarah was suddenly consumed by a fierce rage, threatening Lily for daring to defy her. Lily retorted that she was sick of being Sarah's puppet, which only fueled Sarah's anger. Sarah threatened to hurt Lily, but Wally warned her that it would only make things worse for her. She continued to press Sarah, while Sarah was confident she would get away with her misconduct again, as long as the guild didn't find out about it. Suddenly, someone grabbed her shoulder, and Wally announced that it was too late, mentioning the name Tina, the guild inspector. Tina had finally gathered all the necessary evidence. Sarah asked who she was, noticing the symbol on Tina's hand. Sarah was shocked to realize that Tina was a guild inspector. Meanwhile, Tina maintained a cheerful demeanor, assuring her that she would report Sarah's actions, such as abandoning and abusing her own teammate. Sarah tried to deny the accusations, but they were caught red-handed. Tina gave her a threatening look and revealed that the symbol on her hand was a magic seal that made it impossible for one to lie. Sarah revealed her frustration. She backed away and threatened to fight Tina. Suddenly, Inspector Tina grabbed her by the shoulder, causing Sarah to cry out in pain. Tina used her physical strength to overpower Sarah, making her scream but ultimately submit. Meanwhile, Sarah's teammates feared for her life. Satisfied after forcing Sarah to surrender, Tina handcuffed them both and took them to the guild. Darsha remarked that she always had a tough time dealing with Tina. At that moment, Inspector Tina paused for a bit, realizing that Wally and Darsha were truly brave for using her. Darsha pretended not to know what she was talking about, leaving Tina speechless. Inspector Tina felt annoyed and reminded them not to make a habit of using her again. Tina left in a huff, leaving Wally and Darsha watching her go in silence. A short while later, Wally cheerfully told Darsha that their plan was a success. She remarked that Tina's quirky personality had helped them pull through. In a flashback, they recalled the moment Wally mentioned what he'd heard from the guild. He had used this information as a golden opportunity. Darsha asked Wally to explain further, and he revealed that he had intentionally planned for Tina to follow them. Inspector Tina would likely witness Sarah and her wrongdoings, which would be more than enough proof. Darsha had even suggested sending an anonymous tip and painting Sarah as the villain to support their plan. Wally said that their plan was a real gamble. Back in the present, Lily stood silently in the corner of the room, then called out to Wally and Darsha. Lily apologized to Wally and Darsha for causing more trouble. They both felt sorry for her, but Lily was lost in her sadness and self-pity. Wally, however, thought otherwise. He reminded Lily that she was the one who decided to leave Sarah and her team, and now Lily could live by her own choices. She clenched her fists, tears streaming down her cheeks as Wally told her she was strong. Lily wiped away her tears while Darsha encouraged her with similar words of support. Darsha said that what Lily did was a truly brave act. She took Lily's hand, reminding her of the friendship between them. Overcome with emotion, Lily hugged Darsha tightly and told herself she wasn't a coward anymore. The next day, the guild's investigation into the Angelus party finally concluded. Lily was determined to make a fresh start with Wally and Darsha. The two encouraged her, telling her she would do great. Lily lowered her head, expressing her hesitation about joining their team. Suddenly, Tina appeared and called out to her. Tina took Lily by the hand and announced that she was finalizing the paperwork to disband the party. Though Darsha protested, Lily apologized and excused herself to go with Tina. The following day, Darsha was quiet as Wally urged her to head back to the inn. Darsha was worried sick about Lily, thinking she might be planning to go solo, but Wally tried to calm her down. He reminded Darsha that Lily herself had expressed a desire to join their party, and they had decided to formally invite her the next day, which calmed Darsha down, brightening her mood. Meanwhile, Lily dragged her feet, wondering what she should do. Lily worried that she had missed her chance to join their party, since she had hesitated before and seemed to only cause them trouble. However, she stopped overthinking it and realized she needed to state her feelings clearly. She told herself that overthinking would just lead her in circles and resolved to ask them again the next day about joining their party. Meanwhile, Wally couldn't help but worry as well. The next day, Lily went to the guild and searched for Darsha in the crowd. Suddenly, she spotted Darsha standing there. Lily tried to rehearse in her head before asking to join Darsha's party. She called out Darsha's name loudly to get her attention, and finally asked if she could join their party. Darsha was taken by surprise while the other adventurers from their first quest looked at Lily, confused. The guys thought Lily was asking to join their expedition, which made her think she had made a mistake. However, the adventurers realized she was a defender with a shield, something they desperately needed. The guys invited her to join their party, which made Lily panic. Lily grew frantic as she tried to explain herself and looked to Darsha for help. She was pulled away from Darsha, frustrated by the misunderstanding. Darsha was stunned for a moment, but quickly composed herself. In a brief flashback, Darsha's intuition had urged her to check on Lily. She had decided to leave while it was still light out, anxiously searching for Lily, which led to the current situation. Meanwhile, the quest for the day was to investigate the cause of the field's destruction and eliminate the unknown force responsible. The male adventurers were confident this low-level quest would be a piece of cake for them, while Lily felt guilty that everything had gone so wrong. Lily was determined to finish the quest immediately so she could clear up the misunderstanding with Darsha. She maintained a positive attitude and encouraged herself. Meanwhile, Darsha quietly watched the adventurers, worried about Lily. The adventurers kept quiet and observed their surroundings. They were shocked to find an ogre bear lurking in the forest, a species that usually lives deep in the mountains. However, this monster was a carnivore, so it wasn't the culprit eating the crops. But they couldn't just ignore the presence of this wild beast. The adventurers wondered how they were supposed to fight the ogre bear, since its body was so strong it could snap a spear like a twig. Lily volunteered for the task, offering to take just one hit. She used her magic and summoned a wearable shield. The adventurers were amazed as she explained that their entire bodies were now covered in a protective layer that could block most attacks in a single blow. She warned that it couldn't be maintained for long, but the adventurers replied that her magic was more than enough. The group decided not to waste any time and began the mission. The ogre bear had a menacing presence. The monster attacked the adventurers, swinging its sharp claws. However, the protective layer activated and blocked the attack. Another adventurer stepped forward and stabbed the monster's eye with his spear. Soon the monster fell, marking the end of the battle. Lily was amazed by the adventurer's strength, but the two men praised her for her magical protection. She felt honored and was happy she could help them. Darsha watched from behind the trees as the group shared smiles and talked about their impressive teamwork. She felt emotional seeing Lily finally shine, using her excellent shield skills. Darsha admired Lily from afar and believed she could thrive in any party, which made her reconsider pulling Lily into the chaos of their own group. Suddenly, a loud roar echoed through the forest, catching the attention of Lily and her group. Another ogre bear appeared and fiercely attacked Darsha. Lily was stunned as she witnessed the brutal exchange. The guys recognized the situation and tried to give her advice on how to deal with the monster. Darsha slipped on the wet ground, frustrated that she had let the monster get close without her noticing, but she remained on guard. But the monster attacked her relentlessly. She was clearly struggling and got cornered against a tree as the monster charged at her frantically. Suddenly, the monster's attack was blocked, thanks to Lily's quick thinking and magical protection. She immediately urged Darsha to make her move while she had the chance. Darsha gave a confident smile and told Lily to leave it to her. Darsha struck the monster with her shadow flames, causing the ogre bear to fall instantly. Lily smiled widely and rushed over to Darsha to reunite with her. Darsha's face lit up as she turned back to look at Lily. She thanked Lily for saving her. The guys hurried over to check on the situation and recognized Darsha from their previous adventure in the village. She felt embarrassed at being recognized. Lily noticed he knew Darsha, while the guy pointed out that the two girls had perfect teamwork, which Lily acknowledged. Darsha proudly confirmed it, saying they were partners. She suddenly became possessive of Lily, while the guys promised they wouldn't take Lily from Darsha. Lily finally breathed a sigh of relief that they had cleared up the misunderstanding. Suddenly the bushes rustled, putting the group on alert for approaching danger. However, it was only Wally, and he was holding a piglet. He announced to the group that he'd come to see Darsha and Lily, and asked what they were doing deep in the forest. Darsha clenched her fists, which made Wally feel nervous. Darsha yelled that that was her question, and she should be the one asking what he was doing with a piglet. After that, the group finally said their goodbyes. It turned out the piglet was the one ruining the crops, while the ogre bears were just drawn to its scent. Wally revealed that a girl had approached him and asked him to find her piglet. When he arrived at the meeting point to see Darsha, she pointed out his habit of meddling in other people's business. However, Lily defended him. Darsha pointed out that Wally seemed pleased after Lily's praise. He observed that everything had finally been resolved for Darsha. She confirmed this and suddenly decided to speak her mind. Surprising Lily, Darsha called out Lily's name and suddenly held out her hand, inviting Lily to join their party. She reminded Lily of her earlier promise to be her shield and always protect her. Lily started to get emotional until she mentioned that her class was a guardian, which surprised Darsha with her reaction. Lily said her job was to protect people and promised to protect both of them. Wally and Darsha were both delighted by her promise, prompting Darsha to take Lily's hand. Afterward, the group celebrated Lily's joining with drinks. Wally suggested that Lily order anything she wanted, but she was too shy to do so. Wally insisted and asked Darsha to ask her formally. Suddenly, Darsha stood up and slammed her hand on the table. Darsha confronted Wally for being so formal with her, which he wasn't with Lily. She expressed her frustration with him using honorifics with her. Darsha felt it was unfair and asked Wally why he couldn't let his guard down around her. Wally tried to explain, saying that he truly respected Darsha. She felt honored by his answer. Wally confirmed it and apologized to her, causing Darsha to blush. She turned away to hide her reaction and encouraged Wally to speak with her more casually. Lily felt at ease with the group and teased Darsha. The group shared a cheerful conversation until their food arrived. Meanwhile, Wally's former party arrived at the tavern to eat and noticed their lively atmosphere. At the same time, Wally was thinking about how he'd earned over 150,000 points from the previous OET quest. He couldn't believe it himself after acquiring 4 support skills. Even though so much had happened, including forming his own party, Wally was lost in thought until Darsha tried to get his attention. She informed him that they were thinking about picking a name for the party. He replied that he hadn't really thought about it. Darsha explained that getting everyone's support was important. She asked Wally if he had ever been in a party before. Wally answered that he used to be a member of the Leviathan party, which surprised Lily. He shared that their party was on the rise and was about to reach S rank. Darsha asked about his childhood friend Malira and questioned why he hadn't left with her. Wally replied that the situation was complicated. He fell silent, avoiding the thought, but always wondered why Malira hadn't said anything. When he was kicked out of the party, Wally wondered if Malira thought he was a burden. He remembered banging on the door until someone would listen, and then mentioned that he had left his party. A menacing voice demanded Wally use the proper wording, shocking him with the unexpected encounter. Jack, the leader of his old party, approached their table with the rest of his members. Jack corrected Wally, saying he was kicked out of the party. Hana, the mage, looked disappointed to see Wally, while Malira seemed pleased to see him again. They also had Gary, Wally's replacement. Darsha turned to Wally, and he confirmed that this was the party he had just mentioned. Jack objected to him calling them a crew, and called Wally a burden to the team, which upset Darsha and Lily. He praised Gary, saying he was better than Wally. Wally remembered what Hana had said before about having a plan after kicking him out. Wally immediately announced that they would be leaving to avoid any conflict. Meanwhile, Darsha asked Jack if they had really driven Wally away. She smiled slyly and called them fools for letting go of a talent like Wally. Wally tried to de-escalate the situation, but Lily intervened and called them out for their harsh words about Wally. Jack suddenly realized, thinking that Wally was still as kind as he'd always been. Jack suddenly commented that Wally was extending a helping hand to a bunch of useless mercenaries. Wally fell silent after that remark. Jack continued, saying Wally's team was a way to help lost causes right where he belonged. Wally suddenly stepped forward forcefully, causing the room to fall silent. The other patrons watched them curiously as the tension in the air mounted. Wally stood quietly, not saying a word. He bravely faced Jack and said that Jack was free to say any rude words he wanted about him, but he warned Jack not to speak ill of his friends. Wally looked Jack straight in the eye and threatened that next time, he wouldn't let it slide. Jack was shocked by Wally's unexpected reaction, feeling offended that Wally had overstepped his bounds. Suddenly, Melira stepped between them, stopping the escalating tension. She told Jack not to let his anger lead to a fight, or else he could be reported to the guild and lose his chance at S rank. She pulled him out of the tense situation, leaving Wally stunned. Afterward, Wally and his party returned to the inn, and he apologized for the trouble, but the girls told him not to worry about it. Meanwhile, Melira entered the inn and called out Wally's name. Melira greeted Wally with her usual energetic personality. Melira apologized for Jack's behavior, and Wally thanked her for helping resolve the situation. She explained that Jack was just in a bad mood, making Wally curious about what had happened. Melira replied humorously that she had failed her quest. Wally was surprised by her answer. Melira shared that they were investigating the disappearance of some mercenaries but couldn't find any traces, as if they'd vanished into thin air. Wally understood the situation better, and Melira gave him a genuine smile. Melira pointed out that Wally looked a lot happier, but he just denied it. Melira decided to head back to her party, but Wally stopped her to ask a question. He asked if she was really okay with him leaving their party. A moment of silence filled the air, until Melira cheerfully replied that she was. Wally felt a pang in his heart, thinking Melira also saw him as a burden, but she explained that it was better for him that he left. She knew about his excessive kindness and thought it would be better if he formed his own party. She'd always believed in him and knew he would be fine wherever he went, leaving Wally speechless. Wally now understood Melira better and thanked his childhood friend. The two said their goodbyes while Melira seemed a little emotional as she left. Darsha asked if Melira was the woman Wally had mentioned before, and he confirmed it. Darsha and Lily found her likable, except for the other members of her party who had treated Wally poorly. Suddenly, Darsha had an idea. She decided to take on the investigation quest that Team Leviathan had failed to complete, which surprised Wally. He questioned her decision, reminding her that it was a quest that even an A-rank party couldn't handle. Darsha replied that if they completed the quest, everyone would respect Wally. Wally tried to refuse Darsha's idea, but she was insistent, saying that she and Lily believed in his strength. Wally was surprised by her response, saying that he didn't have the kind of skills they were imagining. Darsha told everyone to get ready to head to the meeting point the next day, determined to prove their true strength. However, Wally felt uncertain about this. Even so, he felt grateful for his special skill, Helper Man, which made him so reliable. The next day, the party set off for Cyber's Forest, a place filled with B-rank monsters. The party expressed their curiosity about what happened to the mercenaries, calling it a divine disappearance, and they asked for Darsha's opinion on the matter. Darsha figured the monster must have swallowed the mercenaries whole, armor and all. Meanwhile, Lily's stomach rumbled, prompting the group to take a break and eat lunch. Darsha took out 3 rice balls, one for each of them. Lily savored the food Darsha had made, while Wally ate quietly until Darsha noticed and handed him a napkin to wipe his mouth. During this time, Darsha brought up the topic of choosing a name for their party again. Wally replied that he still didn't have any ideas, but Darsha said she already had a name in mind. She proudly suggested the name Poseidon. Lily thought the name was great, but Wally seemed hesitant. Darsha explained that the name was meant to compete with and surpass the name Leviathan. Wally explained that he didn't form a party just for the sake of competition. Darsha understood, but she tried to explain the situation, asking if he was okay with being remembered forever as someone who got kicked out of an A-rank party. Wally suddenly thought about why he became a mercenary in the first place. He recalled his desire to keep up with his childhood friend. He closed his eyes, determined to improve himself. He announced that he had finally made a decision which surprised Darsha and Lily. Wally accepted Darsha's proposal and decided to name their party Poseidon. Both girls looked at him excitedly. The group was determined to complete the mission right away to register their new party. Meanwhile, something suddenly caught Lily's attention. Lily anxiously called the group's attention and pointed toward a mysterious woman standing behind the bushes. Darsha and Wally were both stunned to see the woman. They guessed she might be one of the missing mercenaries, but noticed something was off about her. As Wally approached to check if she was okay, the mysterious woman suddenly released a terrifying aura, revealing her insect-like eyes. She spread her butterfly wings, leading Darsha to believe she was a monster. However, Wally felt that something was strange about her. The mysterious woman's wings flapped powerfully, creating a strong gust of wind. Accompanied by a sparkling dust that enveloped the mercenaries, Wally suddenly felt blank for a moment. He noticed his vision starting to distort, believing the powder was causing hallucinations. He immediately checked on his team. Wally's senses were gradually being affected, and he considered swinging his sword to defend himself, but feared it would cause an accident. At the same time, he realized this was a type of hallucinogenic powder that could destroy the body. Wally decided to use his detoxification magic to counter the hallucination. Suddenly, his vision began to clear. Wally immediately checked on the state of his party. Wally noticed Lily first, who was hallucinating on the spot. He used his antidote to help her, and they both breathed a sigh of relief, realizing they were both safe. Wally immediately stood up and looked for Darsha, but she was nowhere to be found. He looked around while Lily tried to make sense of the situation. Shock was written all over Wally's face when Lily suggested it might be a spirit-induced disappearance. Meanwhile, in a dark dungeon, a mysterious man held Darsha, who was unconscious. He suggested that this phenomenon was called the Curse of the Nameless Gods. Wally was filled with worry, while Lily thought that the missing mercenaries had also been taken by someone possessing divine power. He wondered why only Darsha was taken while they were hallucinating. Suddenly, Lily hurriedly warned Wally of a surprise attack from behind him. Wally immediately drew his sword and slashed at the monster, but he was shocked when he saw it. Lily checked to see if he was okay. They were both surprised to see an amphibious monster they had never encountered before. Wally concluded that the forest was indeed strange and hoped that Darsha was safe. Meanwhile, the crazed scholar gazed at Darsha's body, remarking how lucky he was to witness a member of the demon race after they were exiled from their homeland due to racial discrimination. He described Darsha as a truly remarkable creature. Darsha began to wake up, and the crazed scholar greeted her in an ominous tone. She panicked and asked about the man's identity while handcuffed. Darsha demanded the scholar remove the iron chains around her, realizing at the same time that her magic had been nullified by the surrounding magic seal. The mad scholar revealed that his ability was called Forest Nymph, which was what she had encountered in the dense forest before being captured. Darsha questioned the scholar about his purpose. The scholar turned his back and walked away, while telling her about his plans for her. The mad scholar approached a cage containing a giant spider and planned to turn Darsha into a chimera. Darsha was horrified to learn of his evil intentions, her eyes widening in fear. The scholar declared the start of his experiment. Meanwhile, Wally screamed in pain while fighting giant insects in the dense forest. Both of them were exhausted after the prolonged battles. They continued to search for Darsha relentlessly. Lily clenched her fists while Wally dragged his tired feet, continuing the search. Suddenly, Lily grabbed Wally and advised him to rest for a bit before he passed out from exhaustion. Wally insisted on continuing, not wanting to waste any more time. However, Lily tried to persuade him to calm down. Wally was surprised to realize that Lily was exhausted after fighting nonstop. He showed his frustration, then apologized to Lily. Finally, Wally agreed to rest for a while. He used a healing spell to help Lily recover. Lily apologized, realizing he was also very tired, but Wally told her not to worry. Wally told himself to stay calm and think clearly to avoid a fruitless search that would only tire them out more. Wally thought of a way to track Darsha better until they noticed a strange presence nearby. Suddenly, a wild dog appeared before them, making Lily think it was lost from its pack. The wild beast barked at them, frightening Lily, while Wally decided to calmly shoo it away. However, he suddenly received a new skill called canine telepathy. Lily, surprised, asked if he was okay, while Wally told her to keep an eye on the dog. Lily complied while Wally inspected his new skill. Wally was confused until he realized his new skill allowed him to sense the nature of animals and command them. He was amazed to learn that he could control wild beasts with this skill. Realizing that he could use it to track Darsha, Wally informed Lily that he had something to test. Lily lightly tapped her staff on her shield, trying to get the wild dog's attention. Wally asked her to keep the animal's attention for a moment while he hid behind a tree. Wally went into stealth mode, planning to approach the dog from behind. However, the wild animal suddenly sensed his presence. Wally reacted with surprise as the wild dog lunged at him, causing Lily to watch from the side, worried for her friend. Wally tried to block the attack with his arm, realizing he couldn't fool the wild dog's keen senses. He immediately used his magic and quickly took control of the animal, using his skill to tame it. The dog immediately stopped its attack and became docile. Wally sighed in relief that his skill had worked. Lily was still confused about how he made the dog so gentle. Wally explained that he just used his skill to command wild animals like an animal whisperer. Then, Wally prepared to use the dog's keen sense of smell. Wally gave the dog Darsha's handkerchief, the very one Lily remembered Darsha giving to Wally. He informed the dog that they were looking for the source of the scent on the handkerchief. Although they weren't sure if this plan would work, it was the best option they had. The dog sniffed the air and quickly picked up Darsha's scent. Wally and Lily rushed after the dog, moving through the dense forest. When they reached an area suspected to be where Darsha might be, Wally and Lily stopped, but they only saw a deserted forest. Wally clenched his fists, thinking their plan had failed. Suddenly, the dog pawed at the ground, and they heard a metallic sound. Even though it looked like soil, Wally took a closer look and realized that something was hidden beneath it. He discovered an iron door concealed by an illusion spell. Wally confirmed that Darsha was underground. Lily pulled on the handle, but it was locked, prompting Wally to switch places with her. He used his skill, intending to create a small opening in the door. Lily was surprised when he successfully unlocked the door. The two saw a staircase leading underground, and Wally asked Lily to come with him. But Lily paused for a moment. She expressed her curiosity about Wally after seeing him display so many skills. Wally understood her curiosity and hesitation, as she described his skills as being somewhat strange. Wally promised he would explain everything to Lily once their mission was over. He convinced her to find Darsha first, and she agreed. Lily patted the dog to thank it for its help before they descended underground. She asked the dog to wait for them while they completed their task. The two finally walked down the stairs, leading to where Darsha was. They couldn't believe their eyes when they discovered an underground facility, which they assumed was a hideout for bandits. Wally was still confused about why they were capturing adventurers in the forest. With no other clues, Wally believed this underground area had a greater purpose, but he wasn't sure what it was. Suddenly, Lily told Wally to look ahead as she spotted a glimmer of light at the end of the tunnel. They both arrived in a large, empty space. The place was so vast that Wally wondered what it was used for. Suddenly, the door slammed shut, trapping them inside. Just then, the mad scholar revealed himself and asked if they were enjoying their underground exploration. He radiated a dark aura, impressed that they had found his hideout. Wally and Lily demanded to know who he was and where Darsha was. The mad scholar announced that their friend was right there with him. He pulled a lever to introduce Darsha, saying she was his lovely child, indicating that the experiment had been a success. Spider legs emerged from the shadows, leaving Wally and Lily stunned. Darsha appeared, her body fused with a spider, turning her into a hybrid monster. Wally and Lily couldn't believe their eyes. The mad scholar looked pleased and ordered Darsha to attack to test her strength. Darsha displayed incredible speed, catching them off guard. She slammed her spider claws into the ground, and Wally tried to talk to her to snap her out of it. However, Darsha remained in a trance and attacked Wally. Wally's body slammed against the wall, making him groan in pain from Darsha's terrifying strength. Lily tried to talk to Darsha, but the mad scholar announced that their words were useless. Darsha looked at the mad scholar and demanded to know what he had done to her. He replied that he had simply improved her already impressive physique and adorned her with jewels like a princess. He revealed he possessed a fusion skill that could turn someone into a chimera. Wally finally realized that Mad Scholar was the one behind the adventurer's disappearance. Mad Scholar confirmed it and thanked them for helping him achieve his goal of possessing a monster race. Wally's rage grew, driving him to attack Mad Scholar. However, Darsha stopped him with her sharp thorns. Mad Scholar praised her, leaving Wally feeling shattered. Wally kept trying to reach Darsha, calling Mad Scholar their enemy. However, Mad Scholar just laughed, saying it was only natural for a child to protect their parent. Wally's anger intensified, while Darsha raised her hand to prepare a long-range attack. Wally thought she was about to use the black flames from the abyss, but he was wrong when he saw light emanating from her hand. Meanwhile, Lily tried to stop her. As Darsha remained unresponsive, a massive beam of light shot out, causing a huge explosion that engulfed Wally. Lily screamed in fear. While Wally was in shock, having just barely dodged the beam, Lily breathed a sigh of relief that she had managed to save him. Wally felt the heat, but he knew it would have been much worse if Lily's shield hadn't blocked Darsha's attack. Mad Scholar rejoiced upon seeing the immense power of his monster race, remarking that the chimeras had infinite potential. Mad Scholar called to Darsha and ordered her to display her power. Wally and Lily kept trying to call out to her, begging her to wake up, but Mad Scholar mocked their efforts. Mad Scholar asserted that Darsha was now completely under his control, and that they would never succeed in waking her. Lily refused to believe it and decided to approach her. Lily couldn't accept the idea that Darsha couldn't hear them, believing her heart could never fall to a monster. Suddenly, Darsha pushed Lily away, shocking Wally. He immediately rushed to heal her, but he didn't know what to do about Darsha. Wally expressed his frustration that no new skill was activating when he needed it most. Mad Scholar taunted them for their helplessness, causing Wally to pause for a moment as Mad Scholar prepared to attack again, making his emotions intensify. Though that was not his intention at all, he ordered Darsha to eliminate Wally and Lily. Then, as Wally tried to approach Darsha again, he suddenly told her to direct her power toward him. And a surprised Darsha complied. An unexpected massive explosion occurred, startling Mad Scholar. The door shattered, and Wally advanced toward him. Mad Scholar trembled in fear. As Wally grabbed him by the collar, Wally demanded he turn Darsha back to normal, but Mad Scholar refused his demand. Wally's anger was palpable, driving him to strike his enemy. Lily watched from a distance while Mad Scholar looked defeated. Wally threatened his foe, but Mad Scholar still mocked him, asking if he was going to kill him. Mad Scholar screamed for Darsha, and she immediately came to his rescue. This only intensified Wally's fury. He desperately prayed for a new skill to win the battle, when suddenly Lily shouted her skill, shielded prison, trapping Darsha in a crystal-like form. Wally and Mad Scholar were both stunned, while Lily tried to persuade Darsha to come back to them. Wally told her to get back, but Lily refused and promised not to give up, just as Darsha had done for her before. Lily desperately calls out Darsha's name over and over, her tears falling endlessly in an ethereal space. Darsha's true form recognizes a voice calling out to her. Wally, his face unrecognizable, is consumed by rage, startling Darsha, who wishes he would stop, knowing this isn't his true self. Suddenly, a black flame appears between Wally and the Mad Scholar. Wally is confused when he sees Darsha's magic, and then the defensive barrier begins to shatter. Finally, Darsha regains consciousness and points out that Wally is no longer himself. He finally calms down upon seeing that she has woken up. Lily feels boundless joy seeing Darsha conscious again. Darsha says that she heard Lily's plea. Wally pauses for a moment, realizing the power in Lily's voice, the very thing that had calmed him down before. He feels guilty for having lost control of his anger once again. Darsha suddenly grimaces in pain, leading the Mad Scholar to think her recovery was just a momentary fluke. Darsha informs Lily that her consciousness is still wavering. She puts her trust in Wally as he closes his eyes to concentrate. Wally once again cries out in desperation, sharing his desire to make a difference and help everyone. He realizes that things have taken a different turn. Suddenly, a blinding light appears before him, signaling that he has acquired a powerful new skill. He remembers that the key to unlocking a life-saving skill is the genuine desire to help. He acknowledges that Darsha and Lily helped him realize this and expresses his gratitude. Meanwhile, Darsha struggles to resist as Lily urges her to regain her composure. Darsha turns to her with a threatening gaze and attacks Lily, but she manages to dodge in time. Darsha begins to lose consciousness again until Wally tells Lily that they need her shield. Lily immediately responds to his request and uses her magic. Wally grabs the Mad Scholar and drags him along. The Mad Scholar announces that he has no intention of giving up, something Wally had already realized. Suddenly, Darsha slams her fist into the ground, forcing Wally and Lily to dodge just in time. Lily asks Wally what they should do, since they can't turn Darsha back to normal with the Mad Scholar's ability. Wally turns to Lily and tells her to trust him, which calms her down. Wally is still holding the Mad Scholar tightly, while Lily notices that he is finally back to his old self. Wally drags the Mad Scholar closer to Darsha, vowing to save her. Darsha raises her hand to attack, but Lily's shield blocks the blow. Wally gently places a hand on her and uses his new skill, called Mimic Man. The Mad Scholar is astonished to see a stream of light emanating from Wally. Wally states that he will simply use the Mad Scholar's magic if the man himself has no intention of using it. Wally's determination to save Darsha is clear, as a giant being of light glows, blinding everyone in the dungeon. Darsha perceives the light from the spirit realm where her true self resides. She recognizes a familiar energy welling up, and her hand reaches out as she calls Wally's name. Their hands meet, and Darsha finally returns to her true form. Lily is moved to tears, seeing that Wally succeeded in saving Darsha. Meanwhile, the Mad Scholar sits on the ground, trembling in fear. Darsha feels Wally's warmth as she leans into his arms. She admits that she's been saved yet again. Wally smiles and replies that he would do it all over again. Wally welcomes Darsha back, and the two embrace, overjoyed at their reunion. Lily rushed over to Darsha, overwhelmed with emotion. Lily sobbed uncontrollably, but Wally reminded her that they still had a mission to complete. She suddenly calmed down when Darsha patted her on the head, thanking her for her efforts to save her. The two girls shared a beautiful moment while Wally watched them with joy. At the same time, the Mad Scholar was filled with regret, expressing his panic as his plans crumbled right before his eyes. The mad scholar couldn't believe that his chimera skill had failed, even though it was supposed to be incredibly powerful. Wally and his group silently watched the mad scholar as he flew into a rage, his face filled with fear, and asked Wally who he was. Wally replied that he had already answered that question, stating that he was just an ordinary person. He looked at the palm of his hand, contemplating his new skill, the ability to mimic a target's abilities. The mad scholar's frustration grew, causing him to try and escape from Wally and his group. However, a crystal wall blocked his path. He realized he was trapped inside one of Lily's shields, and their group stood behind him. Determined not to let the mad scholar get away, Darsha glared at her enemy with a dangerous look in her eyes, preparing to exact revenge with her black flames. However, Wally stopped her, as they still needed the mad scholar for another purpose. He interrogated him about the missing adventurers and demanded to know where he was hiding them. Wally declared that he would hand him over to Melira after he restored the people who had been turned into chimeras. The mad scholar showed clear panic upon hearing Wally's plan. Soon after, they came across the chimera girl again, the one who had caused them to have hallucinations in the jungle earlier. The mad scholar begged Wally not to touch his masterpiece. The chimera girl sat on the floor, an innocent expression on her face. As Wally informed the girl that he was there to rescue her, she was finally freed from the mad scholar's curse. At the same time, Darsha incinerated the chimera's body, turning it to ash. The mad scholar screamed, crying as he watched his masterpiece be destroyed. Meanwhile, Lily urgently informed Wally about the other victims who had also been turned into chimeras. Wally immediately used his magic to return everyone to their normal forms. Wally smiled, satisfied that he had saved everyone. But moments later, he collapsed from exhaustion, worrying everyone around him. Wally rested for a moment while Lily led the victims outside. A soldier volunteered to hand the mad scholar over to the authorities, giving Wally more time to recover. The soldier promised to report their achievements to Melira and asked for their party's name. Both girls were surprised when Wally replied that their party's name was Poseidon, and mentioned that the registration wasn't finalized yet. Darsha and Lily smiled at Wally. The soldier promised to remember their name and bid them farewell. Wally stood up and told the girls it was time to go, but they were worried and felt he needed more rest. Wally reassured them that he was fine, adding that a dungeon was not a place he wanted to stay in. Meanwhile, the group wondered if the mad scientist had really built the dungeon by himself. They suspected he had collaborators helping with his research. Darsha wondered if the Monster Kingdom was really involved in this research, worried that her homeland might be associated with the evil kingdom. After a few moments of confusion, she shook off her wandering thoughts. Wally noticed she was deep in thought. When she explained that she was just wondering how they had found her, Darsha was surprised when he answered that they had simply followed her scent. Her expression soured when he mentioned he'd used the handkerchief she had lent him. Darsha misunderstood, thinking he was calling her Stinky, which Lily found hilarious. Lily explained to Darsha that she would understand once they were out of the dungeon, describing their canine companion as adorable and reliable, which left Darsha feeling confused. Meanwhile, the dog that had helped them track Darsha was waiting outside the dungeon. Suddenly, the dog noticed the group's arrival and excitedly ran over to greet them. Lily burst into tears, knowing they would have to part ways with the dog she had named Courage. Darsha told them they needed to go, but Lily was worried about the dog and wanted to keep him. Darsha replied that having a pet would be difficult for them. Later, at the inn, the girls expressed their surprise at the possibility of renting a house. The idea came from Wally so they could keep Courage with them and not have to worry about landlords. However, Darsha pointed out that money was the issue. Wally replied that it was fine, explaining that the guild had given them a special reward for solving the mystery of the missing adventurers, and that the money would be enough to cover the rent. The girls immediately agreed to his idea. Ultimately, Wally was pleased with their decision, announcing he would go find a place to rent right away and telling them to rest for the day. Lily insisted they should go with him, but Darsha wanted to take this opportunity to bond with her. Lily was unsure but eventually agreed with Darsha. Before leaving, Wally promised them he would find a great place for them to stay. Meanwhile, the girls chatted over a cup of tea at the tavern. Darsha remarked on how thoughtful Wally was about everything. Lily sat silently beside Darsha, feeling shy, as she looked at the rental listings. As for Wally, he expressed his difficulty in finding a place to rent, as all the landlords turned him down. Knowing he was traveling with someone of a monster race, Wally realized that coming alone had been the right decision, since Darsha would have felt guilty if she were the reason they couldn't find a place. Suddenly, a flyer fell onto Wally's face, making him react with curiosity. Surprise was evident on his face when he discovered a rental that allowed all races and pets. Wally felt overjoyed to have finally found a good deal, until something caught his eye. He read that the tenant was required to clean the residence. A short while later, Wally went to check out the place. A dilapidated house overgrown with weeds greeted him in the middle of nowhere. Suddenly, a person appeared and said that many people had turned down this cheap offer because the house was a complete wreck. Laveria, the proud owner of the house, introduced herself to Wally. The old woman revealed that she had bought the house with her friends back when she was an adventurer, but could no longer maintain it due to her age. Laveria had grown attached to the house, so she didn't want to see it abandoned and decided to rent it out for a cheap price. She turned to leave after getting no response from Wally, thinking he wouldn't take the offer. Wally looked at the house hesitating. He admitted that cleaning it would be a tough job, but it was the perfect place for them and was filled with wonderful memories. His desire to have this house grew stronger as he clenched his fist. Abruptly, a notification appeared stating he could acquire a new skill that would help him excel at cleaning and organizing. He immediately selected the skill and realized its convenience. Then, Wally called out to Laveria and made an offer to rent the house for himself and his friends. The old woman remarked that he was a curious one and immediately agreed to his offer, sealing the deal. After that, the cleaning began. Lily wiped the sweat from her brow as the group took on the heavy labor. Laveria informed Wally that she had moved the furniture out and was ready to start sweeping. Wally activated his new skill to make the cleaning job easier. He then asked Darsha to clean the high places, taking advantage of her ability to fly. The three of them divided the work and diligently cleaned their new home. After it was all done, Laveria was utterly surprised by the result. She couldn't believe that Wally and his friends had cleaned the entire house in just one day. The three of them felt thrilled for having completed what seemed like such an arduous task. Suddenly, Laveria became emotional as old memories came flooding back to her. Wally and the girls looked at her with a fond gaze as she was lost in nostalgia. Finally, Laveria declared that the house now belonged to them, much to the adventurers' immense excitement. She suddenly paused when Darsha called out to her. Darsha asked if it was really okay for a monster like her to be in her house. Laveria responded positively and reassured her that she was more than welcome in this home. She promised to deal with any neighbors who might complain about her. Darsha expressed her deepest gratitude to her for accepting her. Wally was surprised to receive a basket full of items. Laveria gave them a housewarming gift and mentioned that the key was in the basket, telling them to live in harmony with each other. The three adventurers smiled and acknowledged her reminder. Laveria couldn't help but be moved as it reminded her of her own team back in her youth. As the sun began to set, the trio finally stepped into their new home, which was now radiant with a fresh look. All three were pleased with their new place, bright smiles on their faces. Wally suggested they get Brave, the dog, the next day, and Lily volunteered for the task. Suddenly, Darsha called the other two over. She suggested they should have a toast to celebrate this special housewarming. The three of them gathered around the table to celebrate. The adventurers held their glasses of wine as Darsha asked Wally to start the party, calling him their leader, which caught him by surprise. Both girls affirmed that it was Wally who had brought everyone together and organized this party. Wally, feeling embarrassed and insecure, suggested that Darsha should be the leader instead of him. However, she suddenly dropped her glass and looked at him, pointing out that he tends to underestimate himself and telling him to be more confident in his own strength. Wally grew thoughtful, trying to explain that it wasn't just a matter of his strength. Both girls wondered what he meant, as Wally decided to be honest with his friends. He prepared to share about his skills and the journey he had taken to acquire them. Darsha finally understood, realizing that Wally's dazzling array of skills was thanks to the help of the magical man. Wally explained that he had just happened to receive help back then. He admitted that he had just gotten lucky one day, and that while the girls held him in high regard, he insisted it was all thanks to borrowed skills. He stressed that he wasn't worthy of being their leader. Darsha realized why Wally had seemed so distant at the pub lately. Although Lily said it was just his personality and Darsha agreed, Wally felt ashamed. Until Darsha pointed at him with a black flame. She said that the black flame was a gift from her demon lineage and asked Wally what he thought could be done with just a single flame. Wally listed many ways Darsha's magic could manifest, but she explained that her black flame could do so many things thanks to her relentless effort. Unlike other demons, Darsha emphasized that what matters is what you do with your power, a power that has saved countless lives. She reminded him of the people he had helped, something he did from the bottom of his heart. Wally was surprised when Darsha mentioned his amazing spirit, which was what turned his skills into countless acts of kindness. Wally started to get goosebumps from her words, as Darsha also pointed out that he would have done the same even without those special skills. Wally was speechless before the girls. To them, it didn't matter whether he had unique skills or not, because both Darsha and Lily were with him simply because of his kindness. He was moved and thanked the girls for their kind words. Finally, he raised his glass for a toast to the team's future, as tears streamed down his face. The group celebrated together. As Wally finally accepted the responsibility of being the team's leader, Lily couldn't contain her excitement that they were about to start their new life together as a trio. However, he unexpectedly dampened the mood by saying that Kai would still be staying, explaining that he had no problem with it and that the girls would be more comfortable without a man's presence in the house. The girls immediately told him off for being so naive, pointing out that the house had plenty of rooms, but living with girls was complicated for Wally. The girls felt lonely after all the trouble of cleaning and renting the house. Wally felt guilty and silently agreed to stay with them. He remembered being kicked out of his old party before, and now Wally cherished his friends, who had finally acknowledged him. He felt incredibly happy and relieved to have met these two girls. Wally declared that he had found the best companions ever. Meanwhile, Melira was gazing at the moon in the middle of the night. A gentle breeze blew through her window, flipping the pages of a magazine that had pictures of Wally and other adventurers. Her eyes grew emotional as she saw the achievements of her childhood friends. The article was about the adventure party's success in fighting bandits in a village, mentioning Wally for his healing abilities and swordsmanship. Melira felt suspicious reading this news. She knew Wally was poor at close-quarters combat and wondered about everyone's disappearance. Melira had heard that Wally saved adventurers who were turned into chimeras thanks to a special skill. She suspected Wally had changed a lot from the person she once knew. Melira thought deeply, trying to make sense of it all, frustration clear on her face as she contemplated her next move. Suddenly, a pair of bright wings caught her attention. Melira's carrier pigeon was waiting outside the window, making her worry about a late-night message. The bird gave her a letter, and Melira felt as if it contained a difficult mission. She looked quite composed, telling herself that her lucky break had arrived. The next day, Wally woke up and greeted Darsha, who was wearing an apron. She made him a simple breakfast, which he deeply appreciated. Darsha was pleased with his reaction, which made her efforts worthwhile. Suddenly, a bark caught her attention. Lily and Brave were back from their morning walk. Darsha invited everyone to breakfast since they were all here now. She reminded them to wash their hands before eating, sounding just like a mother. Everyone was happy to know that Brave liked the house as much as they did. Lily proudly shared that she had taught Brave a few tricks. Suddenly, another messenger pigeon flew to their house. Wally checked it immediately, much to his surprise. The girls were discussing their shopping plans for the day, but Wally suggested they put those plans on hold. Darsha looked at him with concern, as Wally informed them that Melira was urgently requesting help because a dragon kraken had escaped from a dungeon and was heading towards town. The girls readied themselves for the next dangerous mission. At the guild, the Leviathan party arrived at the guildmaster's office to report in and receive a mission. With a stern expression, the guildmaster acknowledged their rank and abilities and asked the group for their thoughts. Hana felt pressured by the guildmaster, who was a former S-rank adventurer. Jack bravely accepted the guildmaster's challenge, but added that he had a condition of his own. The guildmaster didn't seem fazed and asked him what that condition was. Jack expressed his desire to take the S-rank promotion exam after completing the mission. The guildmaster realized Jack wanted to erase the stain of failure from the mysterious disappearance incident. Jack was surprised and insisted that wasn't his reason for wanting to take the promotion exam. The guildmaster paused for a moment, stood up and replied that defeating the dragon would certainly be enough to prove their capabilities. Jack stood his ground as the guild commander finalized the contract, expressing his trust in them. Jack was fired up while his party members stood by, supporting him in the carriage. They remarked on how quickly things had progressed with the guild commander. Jack agreed, noting that they finally had a stepping stone to reach S-rank. His determination was clear as he voiced his desire to achieve their goal. The party members realized how lucky they were to have a shot at promotion. Hana, however, felt uneasy about what was happening. She was worried about the dragon kraken, a fearsome enemy for adventurers of any rank. Jack, on the other hand, was confident they could handle the beast. Everyone fell silent when Jack mentioned that they had finally gotten rid of their dead weight member. He blamed Wally for their failure to reach S-rank sooner. Gary asked if he was talking about Wally, the party's former healer, and Hana confirmed it. She spoke of Wally's desire to help others, no matter the circumstances, as if he wanted to become some kind of saint. Jack agreed with her, admitting that while helping people wasn't wrong, putting everyone else in danger to do it was something he couldn't forgive. His anger was palpable as he mentioned how he couldn't stand Wally. Gary described Wally as insubordinate, though he admitted he didn't know him well. However, Hana and Melira felt something was off about Gary's overconfidence. The girls expected Gary to back up his words when they faced the dragon. Jack cut into the discussion, telling everyone there was no need to worry anymore. He expressed his confidence in Melira. Suddenly, she asked the driver to stop for a moment. After noticing something, she realized she'd spotted Wally and his party walking on the road. Jack asked Melira what was wrong right up until he saw his rival outside, his anger instantly showing on his face. Wally and the girls were surprised to see the Leviathan party. Melira poked her head out the window and greeted Wally cheerfully. She asked if they were also on the Dragon Kraken subjugation quest, which Wally confirmed. Hana voiced her objection, saying she refused to hunt the dragon with Wally's party. However, Wally clarified that their main mission was to protect the civilians, and that the Herald hadn't mentioned anything about assisting the Leviathan party. Jack let his anger show, declaring that this mission was no joke. Jack felt insulted and said there was no way he'd let Wally and his group help them. He told them to just stand back and watch as they defeated the Dragon Kraken and rose to S rank. Wally simply smiled in response, cheering them on but also reminding Jack to be careful. Jack's frustration grew, and he told Wally to do whatever he wanted before backing out of the argument. The carriage moved on, leaving Wally and his party behind. Darcia remarked that the Leviathan party was as unpleasant as ever, but Wally remained in good spirits, relieved that they were taking the lead on the mission. Wally told the girls that his party was strong, one of the best A-rank adventurer groups out there. However, he was still unsure about Gary, who had joined after him. As Darcia looked stunned, Wally explained their old party's strengths. Jack's sword, the Saint, could unleash 10 ultimate techniques. Hana used a barrage of high-level spells with her first-class magic. And finally, Melira possessed a unique skill called Chess Master. The girls were confused about Melira's unique skill. Wally explained that it was a skill that literally made its user a master of chess. It allowed her to turn the battlefield into a strategic chessboard. It's an incredible skill that lets her instantly predict enemy moves and gain an advantage on the battlefield. Darcia was impressed with Melira's skill and asked if that made her invincible since she could predict the enemy's moves. Wally revealed that she wasn't unbeatable despite her unique skill, explaining that all the party members needed to be in perfect sync, otherwise she'd have to rebuild her strategy from scratch. Darcia wondered how she managed to get strong-willed people like Jack and Hana to follow her lead, to which Wally replied that it just proved how much they trusted Melira. He also mentioned that this quest could also qualify them for the S-rank promotion exam. Lily felt that S-rank was a whole other world, which made her ask Wally if he ever felt lonely, but he confirmed that he didn't. Wally explained that he would support the Leviathan party if they achieved their dream of rising to S-rank. Darcia looked at him silently, reminding him not to forget about his own success while cheering on his old comrades. The girls chatted cheerfully while Wally noticed something up ahead. Finally, he saw the village where the mission would take place. The group encouraged each other before starting the mission. Meanwhile, Wally secretly worried about Jack, hoping he wouldn't overdo it. His determination was clear as he trusted Melira to keep things in order. Inside the village, the dragon's giant foot stomped down, shaking the ground around it. The monster wandered through the forest, seeking to bring destruction to the village. The dragon let out a roar that shook the entire land, and the monster lived up to its reputation. As the dragon revealed its massive form, Hana expressed hesitation. Jack asked if she was already scared. Hana felt defensive and warned him not to rush in headfirst. Melira expressed her trust in Jack, which seemed to annoy him slightly. She reminded him to follow her lead this time, as this enemy was on a different level. Jack looked annoyed, but he replied that he would follow her strategy as ordered. Hana wondered if he truly understood, adding to their anxiety. Jack's frustration grew, determined to defeat the dragon and achieve an S-rank promotion. Melira looked at the danger ahead and told everyone they needed to get moving quickly. She ordered everyone to their assigned positions. The monster let out a primal roar as it was attacked by the soldiers. They knew how powerful the dragon was, and this fight was completely one-sided. Suddenly, a soldier was caught by one of the monster's tentacles. The dragon swung the poor man through the air, attempting to devour him. The soldiers were planning to retreat until an approaching force appeared on the battlefield. The soldier ensnared by the tentacles suddenly fell to the ground. A brave voice ordered them to retreat immediately. Melira stood at the front line and told the soldiers to leave, letting the Leviathan team handle the dragon. The monster turned its terrifying gaze toward the adventurers. Melira urged the soldiers to retreat to safety, while the injured entrusted the mission to the Leviathan team. Suddenly, a light appeared in front of Melira. It seemed to be a communication device created by Gary. Melira began to use her skill, turning the battlefield into a chessboard. Melira told everyone to focus on the monster's horn, as it was its weak point, while she would act as the decoy. Gary prepared to maintain communications, while also casting a weakening spell to help the group, keeping himself as hidden as possible. Hana prepared to unleash a thunderstorm on the monster's front left leg to slow it down once she was in range. Meanwhile, Jack was waiting in position to charge for the monster's head and shatter its horn. When Melira gave the signal, she told everyone to prepare to break the horn and retreat immediately. Just 3 more steps, and Melira would be in Hana's range, preparing to act silently. Hana really didn't want to face the monster. However, Hana was determined to get that S-rank promotion. The monster finally entered her range and Hana prepared to attack. She used her magic and summoned lightning arrows, firing them at the giant monster before her. She was surprised to find that the dragon had created a barrier around itself. The monster's tentacles shot out from the smoke, catching Hana off guard. Luckily, she managed to dodge the monster's attack. Melira shouted that they needed to focus their energy on a single point and urged her team to break the barrier even if just a little. She suspected that the monster's tentacles could sense magic, since it had targeted Hana through the smoke. Melira imbued her weapon with magic, coating the sword in lightning. She showed her bravery as she prepared to wield the lightning blade. Model. The dragon readied its tentacles and launched them toward Melira. She displayed impressive swordsmanship, severing the monster's tentacles. Melira landed safely on the ground, while the dragon let out a terrible roar from the intense pain. Suddenly, its tentacles instantly regenerated, as strong as before. Melira pointed out the monster's sensitive tentacles and taunted it for the pain it endured. The dragon's rage intensified, prompting Melira to make her move. Now that she had the monster's attention, she prepared to lead it to the cliff's edge. Melira urged Hana to hurry to the designated spot. Jack also prepared for his turn, focusing his energy as light radiated from his sword. His confidence was clear as he waited to crush the dragon. Meanwhile, Melira slid across the ground as the monster fell into their trap. She called out to Hana, who was drinking a magic potion. Melira asked Hana to turn her magic into a powerful blast. Hana cast her spell while making sure the guild would pay for her expensive potion. Her lightning spears pierced the monster's body, causing it to scream in agony. The dragon finally weakened and Melira signaled Jack. Jack leaped down from the cliff, ready to deliver the decisive blow to defeat the monster. He executed a wide slash, cutting through the dragon's horn. Melira showed her delight as Jack successfully severed the monster's horn, which then pierced the ground. Melira told Jack to come back and retreat immediately, but he froze in place. He decided to launch another attack, which went against Melira's strategy. He told her to shut up and continued to attack the monster, as he was growing impatient to end the mission. Suddenly, he paused for a moment and realized that the monster's tentacle had pierced through his stomach, leaving the entire team surprised and in shock. It all happened so fast that Jack couldn't understand what was going on, and the monster lifted him up like a doll. Then it threw him far into the air. Melira screamed Jack's name, worried for her comrade. Gary realized they needed to treat him immediately, but he too had fallen victim to the monster. The girls panicked as the communication magic disappeared. Melira sank into thought about their next steps. She immediately told Hana to change the plan and lead the dragon in the opposite direction, causing Hana to question if it would even work. Melira replied in a serious tone, saying that hunting the monster was no longer an option, and they had to switch to fighting. Surprise was written all over Hana's face at Melira's words. Melira immediately rushed toward Jack, while Hana decided to give it a try. Melira was anxiously silent as her comrades fell one by one. Jack lay on the ground, severely injured, while Melira scolded him for not listening to her. Melira immediately pulled Jack back to check on his condition. She saw he was still alive, but his wound was too deep, making it impossible for them to continue their journey to complete the mission. Disappointment was evident on her face as they couldn't execute her strategy perfectly. She insisted that her plan should have worked. Suddenly, someone called her name urgently. Wally appeared on the scene to support their team, causing Melira to react in shock. He had rushed to help because Darsha had almost finished evacuating the villagers. He was also surprised to see Jack so badly injured. Wally volunteered to treat Jack while Melira concealed her true feelings. She abruptly stopped Wally, demanding in a serious tone that he not treat Jack. She said that she couldn't let him be the one to do it. Melira took out her high-grade potion to treat Jack, but Wally insisted that he could heal him without needing such medicine. She explained that Wally treating Jack would wound his pride and that it would haunt him for the rest of his life. She understood that it was in Wally's nature to help those who were suffering, but she was adamant about not letting Jack endure any more harm. Wally paused for a moment, while Jack, unable to speak due to his injuries, couldn't wait to be treated. Melira realized that she needed Wally's help to support Hana and explained her situation. This caused Wally to react in shock. She pleaded with him, saying he was the only one who could help Hana right now. Wally couldn't believe that Melira would place her trust in him during a crisis, but he ultimately agreed to her plea and immediately rushed off to save Hana. Melira waited until Wally had left the area, then Jack used what little energy he had left to ask her to give him the healing potion. She turned back to look at him with an indifferent expression and tossed the potion bottle toward him. Jack was bewildered to see the bottle land on the ground, completely empty. Melira let out a sinister smile, looking down on Jack as he struggled for his life. He wondered what Melira could be plotting, but she only responded with a threatening smile. Meanwhile, the dragon continued to take hits from the adventurers who were also growing weary from the fight. Finally, the beast began to retreat, leaving everyone relieved to have driven the dragon back. Hana expressed her anger toward Wally and his team for interfering, asserting that she had the situation under control. Darsha advised her to thank them instead of being angry, since they had arrived just in time to handle the monster. Hana didn't care, and insisted it should have been her team's kill, which left Wally feeling confused. Suddenly, Melira appeared with Gary and thanked the adventurers for repelling the monster. Hana was relieved to finally meet up with her teammates. The adventurers acknowledged their presence, but Wally noticed that Jack wasn't there. Lily announced that they wouldn't have been able to retreat without their support. She also announced that their leader was severely injured and unconscious, so on behalf of her team, she thanked the adventurers, which caused Wally, Hana, and the others to be stunned. As Wally's knees grew weak with worry over Jack's condition, Darsha became concerned about him. Wally silently recalled Melira's promise that she would take care of Jack. He looked at her with confusion, and Melira looked back at him and smiled, causing Wally's confused reaction to turn into astonishment. He told Darsha that he needed to head out first and discuss something with Melira. Hana urgently called out to Melira, still in a state of shock. Melira clarified the situation while Gary explained that he didn't have enough energy to heal Jack when he regained consciousness. Hana worried about what would happen to Leviathan with Jack in critical condition. Melira told Hana to head back first, as she had some business to take care of, while Wally looked dejected as he approached Melira. Melira greeted Wally with a bright smile, but he responded in a serious tone and demanded an explanation about Jack. Melira remained silent while Wally waited for an answer. He suddenly lost his patience and said she should have told him sooner so he could have gone back to heal Jack. Melira burst out laughing, confusing Wally, then explained that if she had done as he said, Jack would have been saved. She remarked how easily he believes anything she says. Wally realized that she had intentionally let Jack die, while Melira justified her actions, assuring him with a threatening glare that he wouldn't embarrass himself any further. She recounted Jack's words from before he passed out. Melira revealed that Jack had begged Wally to help him. She found it ridiculous coming from the man who used to look down on Wally. Wally fell to his knees, filled with regret over what had happened to Jack. Disappointed with Jack, she decides to share something with Wally when she gets the chance. She reveals that she was the one who recommended Gary to the team, which led to him being kicked out. Wally stares at her, stunned and amazed. Melira approaches and tells her childhood friend that he's a real pain. Wally is speechless, and Melira bids him farewell with a friendly smile. She leaves, leaving Wally all alone in the middle of the forest. Eventually, Lily and Darsha get worried and go looking for him. The girls find Wally and ask him what happened. Depressed, Wally only utters Melira's name before falling silent. The girls look at him with concern. The next morning, Darsha asks Lily how Wally is doing. He was still deep in sorrow after returning home last night. Lily says he's still grieving and muttering Melira's name, which makes Darsha think something bad happened between them. Wally reminisces about the good memories with his childhood friend, until Darsha decides to take matters into her own hands, deciding to meet with Melira. Though she doesn't know what will happen, when Darsha confronts Melira directly, the girls admit they couldn't just sit idly by. Lily volunteers to go with Darsha, determined to help Wally the same way he would help everyone else. At a tavern where Leviathan is staying, Melira sits alone at a table, eating her dinner. Suddenly, she notices Wally's friends entering the tavern and greets them. Darsha approaches her and says bluntly that she just wants to talk with Melira for a moment. Darsha asks Melira what happened between her and Wally last night. Melira turns away and replies that she should ask Wally directly. Melira emphasizes that it's a matter between two childhood friends, adding that it's none of Darsha's business. Darsha tries to understand her, but she can't stand by while her friend is suffering. Melira has a menacing smile on her face. After learning that Wally is consumed by sadness, she says he deserves it, which enrages Darsha. Darsha confronts Melira, but Lily tries to keep things calm and holds her back. Meanwhile, at Poseidon's house, Wally is still lost in his sorrow. Thinking back on what happened with Jack and Melira, he still can't believe it, recalling the times he admired her and wanted to stand on equal footing with her. Meanwhile, Melira remains indifferent as an angry Darsha confronts her. Wally remembers what Melira had said before, that he'd be fine no matter where he went. Melira replies to Darsha that she just needed to wake Wally up from his delusions. He realizes that Melira had been deceiving him all along. Melira calmly tells Darsha to get her hands off her shirt. Lily tries to de-escalate the situation while the other patrons look at them with disdain. Darsha and Lily decide to leave, but Melira taunts them. Darsha turns back, saying she'll make Melira pay for betraying Wally. Melira replies cheerfully, saying she looks forward to it. Finally, Darsha and Lily leave the tavern. Meanwhile, Wally is still lost in thought, trying to make sense of everything. He feels lost after being betrayed by his best friend. Suddenly, he notices chess pieces on the floor. He picks one up and remembers Melira's playstyle in a game of chess. Suddenly, he recalls Darsha begging for a rematch, which was when they first met and played chess together. He realizes that Darsha had stepped forward, despite the racial discrimination she faced in this country. He starts to see things from a different perspective. He understood that nothing would change, even if he just curled up in a corner forever. He promised not to lose sight of his dream, especially now that he had friends by his side. Wally's friends fully supported him. He wiped his face, showing his determination to move forward. The girls returned home, still unable to believe that Melira was such a bad person. They were worried that this incident would make Wally give up on being an adventurer. Darsha expressed her support for Wally no matter what he decided, and Lily felt the same way. The girls announced their return, and the delicious smell of food wafted through the air as they entered the house. Wally greeted them with a smile, announcing that dinner was ready. Darsha and Lily looked at each other, relieved that Wally seemed to be back to his old self, as they all had dinner together with their friends. Wally decided he would have a talk with Melira to find out her true intentions. Knowing that Jack was still alive made him feel relieved. Suddenly, Rave started barking loudly at the door, prompting Lily to check. When she looked outside, she was surprised to see an unexpected visitor. Lily hurriedly called Wally over. He went to the door and was shocked to see an unexpected friend, Hana, bruised and battered, begging them for help. Wally immediately offered to heal Hana's wounds first, inviting her into their home. He used his healing magic and her wounds instantly closed. Then he began to ask her about the situation. Hana clenched her fists, revealing that she had just left Leviathan, which took Wally and his friends completely by surprise. He asked her why she left Leviathan, and Hana replied that Melira had taken over as Leviathan's leader and had started getting violent with her when she didn't follow her orders. Lily and Darsha listened intently as Hana shared that she couldn't stand life on the team anymore, so she ran away. Wally silently contemplated what Melira was up to. Hana pleaded with Wally for help, expressing her desire to join his team, no matter how small the task. Wally was surprised to hear she wanted to join Poseidon. Suddenly, Darsha spoke up, saying she was asking for too much. Darsha reminded Hana that she was the one who pushed Wally away and should be the last person to ask him for help. Hana turned away, feeling guilty. Wally remarked that it was okay, which made Darsha furious. Wally showed compassion, suggesting there must be a reason why Hana wanted to join their team. Hana swallowed her pride and revealed that she needed money, which surprised Wally. She explained that A-rank teams and higher receive funding from the government, and she was using that money to send back to her hometown. Wally realized the reason Hana was so focused on defeating the dragon was because getting promoted to S rank would increase the funding they received. Since she had left Leviathan, receiving a regular salary was no longer possible. Darsha realized that joining Poseidon, currently a B-rank team, was a shortcut instead of starting over from scratch. Hana told Darsha to say whatever she wanted, but she was certain her magic would be useful to the team if Poseidon decided to aim for a higher rank. Although Wally was reassured that the team would benefit from Hana joining, Darsha immediately objected to her joining the team, pointing out that Hana changes her goals so easily, and stressing that she couldn't just trust her so easily. She turned to Wally and realized he already wanted to help Hana, which he confirmed. Darsha asked Lily next, who replied that she couldn't stand any form of violence because she had been through it herself. Darsha saw that the votes weren't in her favor and decided to agree. Wally expressed his joy after getting her approval, but Darsha emphasized that she would put Hana on a trial period and she would have to leave immediately if she turned her back on the team. Darsha then asked Hana if she had anything to say to Wally before joining the team, making Hana feel nervous. She stepped forward, facing Wally. Hana bowed her head and apologized for how she had treated everyone before. Wally replied that he had already forgotten all about it and had moved on, then held out his hand, officially welcoming Hana to Team Poseidon. Lily led her to an empty room to rest, smiling and letting Hana relax, However, as Hana stood behind the closed door, she remarked that everyone on Team Poseidon was too soft. In a flashback, Hana recalled the plan Melira gave her when she joined Wally's team. Melira had planned to use Hana as a spy, believing that Wally could be the key to saving Jack, especially since Wally had returned to support the adventurers who had been turned into Chamoris and wanted to discover his secret power. Melira asserted that she couldn't investigate on her own because she had become a target for Darsha. Hana expressed her hesitation about Melira's plan. Their new leader slammed the door, showing her frustration. Hana was frightened when she saw Melira's reaction. Melira explained that they could lose their A-rank status at any moment, which could put Hana in a difficult position. Hana felt pressured, while Melira tried to convince her to agree to the plan. In the end, Hana reluctantly agreed to be a spy. She told Melira not to blame her if she failed the mission and got sent back. Melira reassured her not to worry because she had already thought of that. Smiling, Melira also assured her that Wally wouldn't refuse to let Hana join the team. At that moment, Gary approached Hana, under orders from their new leaders to hit her. Back in the present, Hana still couldn't believe she'd been hit by Gary, but she admitted it had caused quite a reaction. She sighed, wondering what Melira was thinking. She tried to make sense of the situation, realizing she was doing this for the team's sake. She couldn't wait to learn the power that even Melira didn't know about so she could go back to loving Wally. She needed to fulfill these conflicting demands to earn everyone's trust. The next morning, Wally announced that he had no plans to take on any missions for the time being. Surprising Hana, he said he planned to visit the village he and Darsha had saved before. Darsha shared that they had received an invitation to the inauguration of the village's new mayor, Hatton. Wally and Darsha were the only two invited, but Lily wanted to go too. Wally informed them that the invitation was addressed to Team Poseidon, and that he planned to introduce Lily and Hana. Hana replied that she would go along since she wasn't allowed to complain anyway. Darsha suggested that they should head out right away, while Hana asked if they really needed to rush, thinking the destination was probably nearby. Wally and the girls replied that wasn't the case. Finally, the group arrived at the village. Wally proudly pointed towards it. Hana kept complaining because it had taken them 2 whole days to travel. She showed her annoyance as she realized Wally's nature, always helping those in need. On the way, Wally just smiled and thanked Hana for helping them. Hana was speechless for a moment, then realized she had promised to do whatever they asked. She asked them if they were worried about their promotions, since they were attending meetings instead of taking on missions. Wally and his friends replied that they weren't worried at all, which only made Hana even angrier. Darsha urged her that if she didn't like how they did things, she could leave, which only annoyed Hana more. Meanwhile, Wally told everyone to go welcome the new village mayor. Sieg, the new mayor, warmly welcomed Wally and Darsha back, saying he had heard about their recent adventures. Wally greeted him back and expressed his satisfaction at seeing him as the village's new mayor. Sieg welcomed the new members of Team Poseidon, but Hana replied that she was just playing a part. Sieg told them to enjoy the party and then began to present the celebratory feast. Lily's eyes lit up when she heard this. The mayor revealed that the real purpose of this gathering was to invite Wally and his friends, as they hadn't been able to properly express their gratitude before. The villagers expressed their excitement at seeing the heroes who had saved them before. Wally and Darsha were moved by the affection they received from the villagers. Meanwhile, Wally looked for the other adventurers who had helped them on the previous mission, but they seemed to be busy. The villagers raised their glasses to toast the heroes who saved them, everyone smiling as they celebrated together. Meanwhile, Hana sat alone, quietly observing everyone around her. Hana remarked that the gathering was just a waste of time and she wasn't really paying attention. Suddenly, she realized it had been a long time since she had attended a festival like this, as Leviathan had been focused solely on climbing the ranks lately. She let out a deep sigh until she noticed someone approaching her. A sad-looking girl stood before her, and Hana asked if she needed something. The girl asked if the festival was fun, but Hana replied that she was enjoying it. She thanked the girl for her concern, which seemed to put the girl at ease. The girl asked if Hana was a member of Wally's party, and Hana gave a slight nod in confirmation. The girl's eyes lit up as she asked if Hana was as strong as them. She waited patiently for an answer while Hana smiled, and confidently spoke of her magical abilities. Hana showed the little girl a bit of her magic, to the girl's amazement. Suddenly, the girl started rummaging through her bag, making Hana curious. The little girl took out a flower and gave it to Hana as a token of gratitude. The girl said that she had originally planned to give it to Wally, but now she wanted Hana to have it, hoping she would help Wally. Hana saw a bit of Melira in the little girl, which made her pause. Her expression softened and she promised she would help Wally. The little girl asked Hana to seal the promise with a pinky swear, which surprised Hana, but they went through with it. As Hana and the little girl linked their pinkies, Darsha happened to turn her head and saw the two of them interacting, which made her curious. Hana gazed at the flower in her hand, wondering if Melira could ever wear such a gentle expression. Meanwhile, at the guild hall, the guildmaster called for the report to begin, and Tina prepared to give it. Tina reported on the mad scientist behind the Chimera creation plot, suspecting that other adventurers were his accomplices. Meanwhile, the villagers bid farewell to Team Poseidon. Wally and the girls waved goodbye to them as they departed, entering a dungeon called Dart Dungeon. Here, the terms for a transaction were being set. The deal promised a large collection of magic stones, while cloaked figures planned to remind humanity of the terror of the evil god at the hands of the true monster kingdom. An unexpected reunion occurred as Tina greeted Darsha. Darsha showed her annoyance, asking why their team had been summoned. Wally was surprised to see the guildmaster, who looked apologetic for dragging them to the guild hall so suddenly. The guildmaster explained that he had heard about them from Tina, and described them as a trustworthy party with solid talent and credibility. The guildmaster recognized Hana as a member of Leviathan, to which Hana replied that a series of unexpected events had taken place. The guildmaster asked for a favor, apologizing for the short notice, then suddenly presented a sigil, making the adventurers curious. Wally contemplated the sigil's shape. It looked like a horn. Darsha watched with a serious expression from a corner of the room. The guildmaster asked if they had heard of the true monster kingdom, which Wally found unbelievable. The guildmaster explained that the monster lord's intentions of friendship were being opposed by an extremist faction, and a plot to revive the world of the monster race had been revealed. The adventurers were shocked to learn that there were accomplices within the kingdom, and they were suspected to be the culprits. Model. The guildmaster asked Hana to investigate the matter. The guildmaster has received important information about the true magic kingdom. He's preparing to conduct a transaction for dark magic stones within the country. Hana expresses her shock and questions the need for dark magic stones. Wally asks Hana what this means, as he's never heard of it before. Hana begins to explain that the magic stones on the market are usually used for cooling or heating, whereas dark magic is described as a destructive power with more harm than good. The guildmaster mentions that there has only been one successful use of this power, which was to activate the evil god Jashan, much to Darsha's surprise. The guildmaster describes the dark power as a biological weapon and a curse, capable of causing thousands of deaths instantly. Darsha recalls that humans sealed it away during the Great War, but the guildmaster believes the extremists are determined to release it once more, and he looks at Darsha with a worried expression. Tina realizes that Darsha's country is deeply involved in this situation, while Darsha expresses surprise at the development of the faction opposing the Monster Lord. The guildmaster reveals that this organization has recently been calling itself the True Monster Kingdom. They discovered that the mad scientists they captured had been providing research data in exchange for funding, which makes Darsha realize the connection. The thought of breaking the Dark God's seal gradually becomes grim. The guildmaster is concerned about the possibility of war breaking out again between the monster race and humanity. Darsha wonders what the situation is like in the Shadow Kingdom. The guildmaster asks for their assistance in securing a deal and apprehending members of the Shadow Kingdom, framing it as a request from the nation itself. He asks the adventurers how they feel about taking on this mission, which leaves Wally silent. He expresses a strong desire to accept the request from the kingdom, despite knowing it's a huge challenge for B-rankers. Darsha brings up the necessity of accepting this mission, expressing concern about the unchecked monster kingdom, which is sowing discord between humans and monsters, even though their numbers are still small for now. Darsha emphasizes that there are people who welcome the monster race, and she also highlights the importance of building understanding between monsters and humans. Wally is worried about Darsha as she can't just ignore this situation. As a monster himself, Wally shows his determination and refuses to let the extremists run rampant. Lily feels the same way. Meanwhile, Hana seems hesitant about this dangerous request, but she brings up the importance of her magic. Darsha expresses her gratitude, but Hana acts annoyed. She pretends that she's only interested in the hefty reward from the kingdom, and insists she isn't doing it for any other reason. The adventurers share a laugh, while Hana sees this as a chance to witness Wally's power. Finally, Wally officially accepts the mission. Since everyone agrees to participate, the guildmaster expresses his gratitude and urges the adventurers to be cautious. As he's heard, the enemy is researching forbidden spells that go beyond traditional magic, meaning the group must stay on high alert. On the day of the mission, Wally mentions he's maxed out his basic stats and only has 98,700 points left, remarking that the requirements get bigger every time he gets stronger. Darsha signals that the enemy has arrived. A transaction takes place between cloaked figures involving the promised items. One monster removes its hood and inspects the goods for confirmation, shocking Darsha. Another monster stops its companion, removing an eye patch to get a better look at the surroundings. While hiding behind a tree, Wally thinks about the enemy's eyes, which are glowing with a blue light in the darkness. The monster senses that their scent has been detected and immediately orders the deal to be called off, demanding an attack on the four figures hiding in the woods. Wally realizes the enemy has spotted them, and he quickly orders everyone to split into two groups. He and Hana will pursue the monster tribe, while Darsha and Lily will head in the opposite direction. The monsters believe this is the work of the guild, and Wally urges Hana to act quickly. Hana immediately casts a spell, launching a fireball that stops the enemy in their tracks. The monster tribe couldn't escape the adventurers, as Hana signaled for Wally to attack. The monster used Demon Cutter to counterattack, but Hana easily blocked his attack. However, Hana suddenly missed a dodge. As she was wounded, she cried out in pain. Wally immediately used his recovery skill and healed her wound. He asked her if she was all right, and Hana thanked him. The monsters decided to target the mage first and deal with Wally later. The monster used its Demon Cutter technique, which Wally found incredibly difficult to handle as its power became unstoppable in the darkness. Hana told Wally to step aside, then chanted a spell and summoned a burst of holy light, blinding the monsters. Hana remarked that the enemy's black swords were useless against the brilliant light she had just summoned. The monster scoffed at Hana's confidence, completely unfazed, and began preparing another demonic spell. The monster unleashed a dark slash, aiming to cut through everything in a single blow. Hana prepared to counter his spell, while the monster was confident she wouldn't be able to stop this attack. However, a look of pure shock spread across his face as something unexpected happened. Hana summoned a giant orb of light, calling out the monster's name, and the creatures screamed as they were engulfed by her magic. A massive explosion erupted, instantly incinerating the demonic creature. Hana confidently called out the demon's arrogance. The remaining monster managed to dodge Hana's attack, but Wally immediately rushed in, swinging his sword toward it. The monster blocked Wally's attack, but it couldn't believe the force of the blow, feeling it was much heavier than one from an ordinary healer. Wally continued to pour on the power, slamming the monster against a tree, and ordered it to surrender peacefully, promising its life would be spared if it complied. However, the monster refused, saying its kind would never submit to humans. Wally was surprised to see the monster's palm was bleeding, and before he could react, it began to chant a forbidden spell. Instantly, Hana recognized the technique and urgently told Wally to fall back. The monster suddenly pointed at her, and the spell struck Hana, causing her body to tremble as she dropped her magic staff. Hana was clearly in agony, and Wally immediately rushed to her side. Wally used his healing and detoxification skills, but they had no effect. The monster crept closer, revealing that curses cannot be treated with healing magic. It said the curse would gnaw at the target's very soul. Wally realized this curse was the forbidden technique the guildmaster had mentioned. He hesitated, not knowing whether he should destroy the monster, because only the caster could remove the curse. Wally recognized the situation was just like his confrontation with the Chimera, and decided to use his mimicry skill. Wally's eyes blazed as he realized the enemy's skill was all-seeing eyes and that it was more than just a simple curse. The monster kicked him hard in the stomach, making Wally grimace in pain as he wondered why he had to endure all this. At the same time, Hana was also struggling against the pain, but Wally told her not to give up, promising he would find a way to save her. Suddenly, a notification appeared, granting him a new skill called Remove Curse. Wally gasped in surprise as the achievement unlocked, but something immediately caught his attention. He realized he couldn't acquire the skill because he didn't have enough points. The skill required 100,000 points to learn, while he only had 98,700. Wally was stunned, realizing he was short on points. Model.